All right, you and I are about to dive into a world where power is everything, and betrayal is a death sentence. Even with massive hordes, these knights have enough power to wipe them out. But then, a beast unlike anything they have ever faced before appears. It stands 10 times taller than the others, wielding a massive, jagged blade that could crush a house. Terrified, Sir Alistair screams for Arthur to run. The boy, a mere squire for the group, obeys immediately, his entire body shaking with fear. But before he can even turn, the monster swings its weapon directly at the young squire. He takes the massive hit, flying through the air before crashing into a stone wall, broken and bleeding. The knight mocks his weakness. With one powerful thrust, Alistair pierces the beast, killing it instantly. A glowing mana stone falls from the creature's corpse onto the floor. The rest of the party cheers, celebrating another easy victory in the dark. The veteran tosses a nod to their baggage carrier, Arthur Kirishima, an F-rank mercenary who barely survived the fight. He really thought his life was over. Luckily, he has the survival instincts of a cockroach. The knight tosses him a single copper penny as a bonus. It is an insult, not even enough to buy a single loaf of bread for the day. Arthur grinds his teeth, knowing one day these arrogant nobles will regret every single laugh. He dreams of reaching the top, becoming a legendary S-rank knight that everyone respects. Years ago, these cursed dungeons began appearing all over the kingdom, and around that same time, humanity suddenly awakened to the ancient arts of magic. That was how the Mercenary Guild was born, men and women hunting monsters for gold and glory. But even with magic everywhere, poor Arthur remained the weakest link in every party. Stick with me, this is where things get dark. The group reaches a massive gate leading to the boss chamber. Clearing this floor means a massive payout, the kind of gold they have not seen in 10 years of service. Alistair tells his friend to keep his mouth shut about their shady guild while the rookies are listening. After all, they even let a loser like Arthur tag along. The group bursts into cruel laughter, mocking the boy until one of them finally tells them to stop. Arthur's official class is Sage, a title that should command immense respect in the kingdom. It should be a legendary master class, but Arthur has 0 health and only a single point of mana to his name. Without mana, he cannot cast a single spell. It is a cruel joke of a destiny. He takes this humiliation every day. Since he cannot fight, the others treat him like dirt. The veteran mentions that after the boy's parents died, he was left to provide for his younger sister alone. Arthur nods, explaining that he needs every coin for her tuition at the Magic Academy. The knight smiles, saying a kind boy like him deserves a special job. Then, the trap is finally revealed. The warriors shove the poor squire through the gate. He hits the floor, looking back in total shock. Coldly, Alistair explains that they finally figured out how to unlock the final room of this dungeon. Arthur looks at the ancient runes on the wall. It says the hungry beast of this land demands a feast. And that feast, it requires the blood of a human sacrifice. Now you and I both know what is coming, and it is absolutely sickening. Arthur realizes he is the bait. He screams for help, but his pleas are met with mocking laughter as the massive stone doors slam shut. This was the plan from the start. Seconds later, the torches ignite, revealing the true nightmare inside. A massive shadow looms over him. A terrifying creature holding a soul-reaping scythe prepares to strike. Sensing the blade coming for his head, Arthur barely manages to roll out of the way in time. He keeps dodging, his heart racing as he tries to understand why his friends would do this. The monster does not care about his confusion. It only sees a meal that needs to be slaughtered. A heavy blow sends the boy flying into a pile of human remains, his body battered and broken. The beast slowly walks forward to finish the job. If he does not act now, Arthur is dead. It carries a jar filled with glowing souls, ready to add Arthur's spirit to its morbid collection. In this dark pit, the boy realizes that his journey is likely ending right here. But suddenly, his device rings. You and I are about to see a miracle. It is a picture of his sister. Right now, Alaric remembers how much she sees him as a true hero, and having her believe in him makes him believe it too. Stick with me. With all this newfound strength, our hero blocks the heavy blow with his shield. When you have this much to lose, giving up just isn't an option. The beast's strike slams against his defense until a sudden golden light blinds them both. A golden system message appears, stating that his preparations for awakening are finally complete. It then asks if Alaric wants to activate the unique sage ability known as Successor. This was the first time Alaric had ever seen anything like it. Even without knowing what it is, his instincts scream at him to grab this chance. He confirms the selection, and the awakening erupts. Golden light bursts forth, shattering the ground and sending the monster reeling in pure terror. Alaric begins to levitate as a massive surge of power flows into his body. 2 years ago, when he first discovered his unique abilities through research, the boy was thrilled to become a knight. He thought he could escape poverty and find a bright future. However, his mana was so low he couldn't use any sage skills. Before he knew it, Alaric was stuck as a bottom-tier knight. Even when he joined a guild, they were corrupt and used him like a tool. But through it all, Alaric never forgot the one person he had to protect. Now with this power, he declares he won't die in a hole like this. Watch this next part closely. The Successor ability wakes up, unleashing the martial arts magic of the sages. The shield tree unlocks, granting him the power of a master who combined the sword with ancient magic. Now, the skills of a close combat specialist are literally flowing through his very veins. The monster charges in to end his sudden resurgence, but Alaric is ready. He dodges the strike and counters with a precise, heavy kick. In this moment, his body feels as light as a feather. Ancient memories flood his mind, and Alaric instinctively knows exactly how to fight back. Everything is changing for him now. He can finally go after what he truly wants. Things are matched until the monster smirks. You and I saw this coming. It swallows a soul container whole. Its strength multiplies instantly. This beast has been devouring the souls of fallen knights this entire time, and it shows in its power. Alaric warns it won't get a taste of his soul, but the beast just launches a massive attack. All he needs is speed. He channels every drop of his magic straight into his legs. Like a bolt of lightning, he flashes across the field, dodging every single strike. The monster prepares a fire spell to blast him out of the air. But Alaric counters with a mid-air kick, somehow reflecting the fire magic right back at the beast. He realizes he can reflect ranged attacks, and the monster takes the full force of its own blast. He mocks the creature, asking if all that confidence from before was just hot air. Furious, the beast roars and summons a dark enchantment circle, signaling its most dangerous move. It's preparing a full power strike, but that also means the monster is completely wide open. Gathering magic into his hands, Alaric forms a blade of pure energy, just as the monster fires a massive, world-shaking beam. The beast is proud of its overwhelming power, but its face turns to pure terror as Alaric vanishes, reappearing behind it to pierce its chest with a single aura strike. With the beast dead, our hero earns the achievement for slaying the rank D boss, the Crypt Wraith. He is even granted a solo clear bonus, a magic stone the size of his own hand. He celebrates with everything he has got, marking the first of many future victories. Later, he sits on a park bench reflecting. The guild stole his loot, so Alaric decides to quit. At least he kept that rare bonus orb hidden away for himself. Suddenly, his watch beeps. A massive mission to stop a necromancer. Now that is something that gets him curious. At the gate, 100 participants are gathered. This is a rank C dungeon, and it is a world away from the trash-tier zones he faced before. Suddenly, a bully laughs, mocking Alaric for showing up at the capital and asking what the weakest guy in the guild is trying to prove. He claims Alaric will crawl in misery forever. Trust me, you and I know he is about to regret that. Alaric agrees with that sentiment, but he only agrees when it comes to the weakling the bully once knew, because now he is a completely different man. All right, stick with me. Alaric is about to face this arrogant noble head-on and tell him to watch his mouth, which irritates the man. But before blades are drawn, a sudden shout echoes across the square, and a knight points toward the direction the sound is coming from. The one approaching is Lady Seraphina, a rank A adventurer and the second in command of the prestigious Silver Wings Guild. As a raid leader, she publicly shames the bully for his behavior while advising our hero Alaric not to let himself be provoked so easily by such people. Changing the subject, she praises his bravery for standing up for himself, saying that few people are actually like that. Right after that, all the adventurers gather around to listen to the mission instructions. Seraphina calls for silence and announces that their target for today is a terrifying and powerful necromancer. She explains he has endless minions, so the Silver Wings will strike the boss, while the rest of the group focuses their efforts on fighting the undead subordinates. Suddenly, a blinding light erupts right behind the girl, leaving everyone terrified because even before they enter the portal, the monsters from inside began pouring out into the real world. This isn't what they expected at all. Lady Seraphina screams for the knights to stick to the plan and hold their assigned positions no matter what. But out of thin air, a withered old man appears directly in front of her, causing her to lose balance and tumble down the stairs. But Alaric runs at full speed and reaches her in an instant to save the lady. Holding Seraphina in his arms, he asks if she is hurt, leaving the usually stoic commander feeling quite embarrassed. The vice leader notices his magic power is immense, which is confusing since the boy was said to be weak. Everything becomes very strange. Getting straight to the point, Alaric asks if he should deal with this threat himself. Suddenly, his pocket glows as the undead orb reacts for some reason, and when Alaric pays attention to it, he realizes something that makes him very happy. Without wasting a second, the monster lunges forward to cleave him in two with its blade, but Alaric dodges easily and responds with a devastating kick to the armor, shattering the chest plate and revealing the core hidden deep within. But taking down a boss of this level wouldn't be that simple for him. The monster grabs Alaric's leg and hurls him far away, crashing him hard into a stone wall and causing some serious injuries. You and I both know that hurt, but Alaric can still fight thanks to the resilience of a martial arts sage. Even after getting beaten up, he is smiling because he finally fulfilled the secret conditions to unlock his new power. He needed to face an ancient hero and resonate with an adventurer's soul to unlock his true hidden ability. The divine system asks if he wishes to continue as his successor's skills finally awaken, making this the perfect moment for Alaric to unleash his true strength. While the main battle unfolds, the other knights struggle with the necromancer's minions, and that same bully from earlier manages to decapitate one skeleton with a single strike from his long spear. But these are the undead, and a simple decapitation won't stop them. The skeleton just picks its head up off the ground and pops it back on its neck. At that exact moment, their numbers are endless. Alaric holds the line against the boss, while the other warriors focus on attacking the skeleton soldiers. During the exchange, Alaric blocks a hit, but the sheer shockwave sends him flying back in a world of pain. It's clear that simple swordplay won't be enough to win this fight. To fix this, Alaric summons magic circles to unlock a passive ability of the Sage of Knowledge, known as Instant Foresight. Almost instinctively, the necromancer lunges in for a final, desperate attack. Trust me, this ability is broken. Alaric's eyes can see everything, allowing him to read every move before the opponent even thinks of it. Martial arts alone weren't enough to win, and his magic knowledge by itself wouldn't have saved him either. But the fusion of raw strength and ancient wisdom creates a result that is absolutely devastating for the enemy. This is the true peak of Alaric's original power, and he shatters the necromancer's core with ease. In this kingdom, only 3 others besides him have ever reached the classification of sage. Those 3 are all mages who fight from a distance, which makes our front-line hero a total anomaly. Seraphina watches in awe, wondering if the hero is really just a normal sage. With the boss dead, Only the undead soldiers remain. And that's how we end it, with the minions crumbling and the boss finally dead. Wild story, right? All right, stick with me. The old mage rises and claims the hero cannot win. Suddenly, the brute panics, seeing the necromancer absorb his own bone soldiers to resurrect. Worse yet, the other knights are already losing ground against enemies with infinite life. Seeing the danger, a member of the Silver Crest tells Serena they must retreat. And unfortunately, running away seems like the only path left for them now. But Arthur comforts her, promising to handle it before facing the monster once more. Legends say the Soul Crystal reveals any enemy weakness based on the wielder's power. So, Arthur raises the crystal, calling for everyone to lend him their inner strength. Their remaining soldiers are shrouded by fallen souls, sparking the dark mage's curious interest. This was a clever tactic to stop the sorcerer from reviving his fallen minions. Using a unique power, Arthur summons several magic swords and declares that the monster should never have underestimated humans. While the souls of the fallen keep the bone soldiers pinned down and trapped. Pay attention now. The S-rank skill called Coordinated Designation allows every magic sword to strike like a guided missile, destroying every monster. Cedric stands frozen, unable to understand what just happened, as the man he once called a loser has awakened and easily defeated the boss of a Tier 3 catacomb. Right now, Arthur's life level is now rank B, while his magic hits rank S with the victory screen displayed. All the adventurers let out a massive cheer in celebration. They rush to embrace him, begging the hero to join their elite parties next. Naturally, all this fame makes Arthur look back at the fake friends who betrayed him. But as he turns, the way people speak to him has changed entirely. This makes Arthur truly happy while Cedric grinds his teeth, but suddenly, something catches the boy's attention. He watches as the necromancer seems to call out to him, and after noticing something strange, Cedric shouts Arthur's name just before the monster vanishes. Not just the mage, but Arthur is suddenly pulled into a mysterious teleportation circle. He finds himself lost in a grassy field when a strange shadow approaches. Emerging from the dark, a terrifying beast reveals itself to the shocked boy. You and I can see the danger alert. The system warns our hero to stay away from that thing, immediately putting his survival instincts on high alert. The monster closes the gap in an instant, creating a terrifying sensation that makes Arthur feel like he had already died right there. But he survived only because his Sage of Knowledge ability predicted the lethal strike. So the hero dodged while it struck right beside him. Everything nearby is obliterated. Without that instant reaction, he would be a corpse now. Facing such overwhelming power, Arthur feels true terror since he's never even heard legends of a beast like this. Yet, even while trembling in fear, the protagonist finds this life or death situation interesting. The system notes that the martial arts sage is impressed by the successor's bravery. Back in the fight, the two face off, ready for a bloody final clash. Suddenly, an even bigger predator appears from behind and swallows the first monster whole. But it is not over yet, as a massive silhouette looms over the entire sky. A massive explosion rocks the field, leaving the hero wondering what is even happening. As the dust clears, a giant dragon stands victorious, proving only the strongest survive. Instead of being terrified, Arthur finds it funny that he is just an ant. Suddenly, a massive headache hits, and a voice says it is still too early. Arthur wakes up in his own bed, wondering if it was all a dream. His memory of the time after the necromancer's defeat remains a complete, foggy blur. But his shaking hands and bleeding face prove that those horrors were very real. Trust me, you and I are going to see him reach that level of power one day. Suddenly, his little sister Alara knocks, checking to see if her brother is awake. Arthur wonders if something happened with Alara, but she is just annoyed that he is still asleep. All right, you and I are diving into a story about a hero who is about to shock everyone. Arthur stares at the feast, wondering why on earth they are having such an expensive, massive breakfast. His sister Alice explains that since he earned so much lately, she wanted to cook her absolute best. She really just wants him to eat until he is full. Arthur thinks back to the brutal hardships he faced. If he had quit back then, he would have left Alice in tears once again. Taking a bite of the delicious meal, the emotions finally overflow, and he starts to cry. Alice panics immediately, trying to understand why her brother is suddenly sobbing. He claims it is just the onions and the meat patty, but she clearly does not believe that weak excuse. She worries the food tastes bad, but Arthur jumps up to tell her how amazing it is. They share a warm moment until the meal ends, and Alice says she has something important for our hero. She looks at him with a serious face. She grabs a paper from the cupboard and shows it to Arthur, calling it a gift for his new beginning. Standing before a massive citadel in the capital, the hero can hardly believe he is back here again. Now pay attention. This adventurer aptitude test is where everything finally changes. It is a brutal experiment to measure a warrior's true strength, used by the guilds to find the best talent. For the noble houses, it is the perfect chance to recruit rookies who can fight right now. The place is packed as usual, and an old master watches the crowd from the shadows. An executive asks how this year's new recruits look. Master Thorn is mostly bored, but one blonde boy catches his eye as the main attraction. He is the reason everyone came. He is a paladin, a class so rare only 10 people in the entire realm have it. This boy, Cedric, is an A-rank prodigy and the face of the guild. Every single group here is desperate to recruit him before anyone else does. But then, something else catches the master's eye. Someone special is here. It is Lord Kalen from the Shadow Guild, one of the top 100 ranked knights around. The old man is shocked and worries that this elite fighter is also hunting for the blonde prodigy. But Lord Kalen is actually looking at the same person as our friend Thorn. As our hero stretches, 2 thugs approach him. One recognizes Arthur and tells his friend that this is the veteran known as the weakest sage in history. Not wanting to be mocked, Arthur says he is retaking the test, which leaves the thugs stunned. You and I both know they will regret laughing at him in a second. Cool as ice, Arthur tells them to worry about their own safety. Instead of listening, they take his words as an insult and charge right in. The guy in the green tunic swings first, but Arthur slips away. Then the red tunic lands a heavy kick, thinking he finally nailed the hero. His smug face turns to pure terror as Arthur catches his leg, spins him around, and slams him into the dirt. Finally, the green shirt thug realizes he is in deep trouble. The pressure coming from Arthur feels like a literal monster. Arthur kindly asks if he wants more, but the coward runs away with his tail between his legs. This confirms the rumors for Kalen about that insane necromancer raid. The leader of the Shadow Guild decides he must recruit Arthur right now. Suddenly, someone claps loudly to get the attention of the crowd. Announcing that time is up, he warns them that even though it is a test, nobody can guarantee their safety. If they want to prove their worth, they must climb like their lives depend on it. The trial starts now. From the sidelines, Lord Kalen watches closely to see the true extent of Arthur's hidden power. Monsters swarm the area, and each candidate is forced into a desperate fight. One rookie struggles to launch a fireball at a beast's face. It hits, but barely leaves a scratch on the monster. As he tries to run, the brute from before steps up to take a swing. But the creature's claws rip through him, leaving the thug broken on the cold floor. The score depends on points earned by slaying monsters or finishing objectives deep inside the dangerous dungeon. While the green shirt fails miserably, the paladin and our hero are absolutely dominating the field. The blonde knight realizes the guy fighting right next to him is that famous magicless sage. Trust me, you and I need to see what he does next. All right, you and I are about to watch the ultimate showdown between 2 legendary rivals. Cedric pushes his limits to keep pace as they race ahead. Seeing Cedric's massive score, that brute from earlier is completely stunned. Deeper in the crypt, our duo enters a room filled with deadly traps. Confident in his lightning speed, Cedric believes he can just breeze right through them. Even a direct hit would be a mere scratch to him. So, Cedric boasts he'll show Julian his true velocity. But suddenly, the hero warns that it's impossible. Cedric snaps, convinced Julian is just a coward who wants to turn and run. Instead of backing down, Julian stands his ground firmly. Cedric scoffs, feeling let down by the man he was starting to respect as a worthy rival. Calling him a weakling, the knight tells him to stay back and witness true greatness. Even while being insulted, Julian grabs him and warns him to look very closely. Those arrows are tipped with lethal poison, meaning even one tiny scratch is fatal. Julian explains that retreating is a tactic too. There's a hidden path ahead, and to prove it. The hero conjures an energy blade and strikes a hidden switch, swinging a secret stone gate open. Though stunned by the clever solution, Cedric is secretly fuming. To him, bypassing traps feels like cheating. Even the cameras focus on his anger, while Sterling's allies notice they have already managed to reach level 6. It makes sense for a noble knight to be here, but Julian, he's a total wildcard. The officers struggle to understand how he got there, while Lord Sterling just smiles. Deep in the labyrinth, they are the only survivors left. Noticing Cedric flagging, Julian asks if he can still fight. Cedric admits he's exhausted, noting that Julian clearly trained in a much more rugged way. Julian brags about becoming incredibly resilient during his years in the Shadow Syndicate. Suddenly, a chilling noise sends them both sprinting away as fast as possible. Now watch this. They spot a terrified little girl fleeing from a massive, bloodthirsty bear. Cedric realizes he won't reach her in time, so he draws his blade for a desperate strike. Activating his divine vow, his power surges. Julian screams for his teammate to wait because he senses that something is incredibly wrong. The knight slays the beast instantly and gathers the girl in his arms, promising her that everything is fine now. He never expected that the innocent child was the real monster. Seeing the trap from afar, Julian instantly unleashes his power, hurling a glowing energy sword at the deceptive beast. He scores a direct hit, finishing it off with just that one attack. Just like that, the girl Cedric just rescued is vaporized right before his eyes. The knight falls into a blind panic, desperately trying to save what's left of the child. When he realizes she's gone, he seizes Julian by the throat, howling for a damn explanation. He's absolutely shattered by the horror, but before Julian can speak, the beast rises again, shedding its human skin. In its true form, it strikes. Julian shoves Cedric aside, taking a massive blow that sends him flying. Cedric finally sees his fatal error. You and I both knew this was a mimic-type monster. The beast lunges at Cedric again, but he's frozen in place by the backlash of his own skill. Julian rushes back in, delivering a thunderous kick that finally puts the nightmare in the ground for good. Cedric demands to know what happened. Julian tells him he collapsed because he burned through his ultimate too fast. But that wasn't the question. Cedric wanted to know how he could kill a child without hesitating. Julian just says it was obviously a monster, but that cold logic only makes Cedric more upset. He calls Julian reckless, though deep down, he's just desperate to reach the hero's level of strength. Julian offers his hand, advising him to keep a cool head when things get messy. Cedric slaps it away like a child. He asks if Julian thinks he's superior and acting like some grand master. He shouts that Julian will never understand his heart. From now on, Cedric is going solo, vowing to conquer the rest of the labyrinth entirely on his own. Julian just finds the whole thing weird, considering the obvious truth. They are both going to the same place anyway. At the 10th level, Cedric stands proud, knowing this victory will make him a legend. Suddenly, something catches his eye. He barely dodges a fatal strike. A terrifying Skull Knight emerges, mocking him and calling him a rat that's good at running. The proud knight draws his steel, igniting his secret technique to make the monster choke on its words. Trust me, he must end this battle before his power fades entirely. Stick with me. You and I are about to see every single strike get blocked. Not even Cedric's strongest attack can pierce the knight's armor. and the monster finds the sword's light quite annoying. Unfortunately, that is when the 5-second immobilization penalty kicks in. The beast easily shatters the blonde noble's defense, landing a hit that sends him rolling across the stones. As he stops, the system warns that due to recoil, every single one of his skills will be weakened. To survive a collapsing crypt, brave knights usually fight with everything they have until the very end. That's what Cedric's parents did, making the day he heard the news the day he decided to become a master. Back in the fray, the skeletal knight shows a bit of mercy, telling the boy to just leave. But Cedric's eyes ignite with fury, and a red aura erupts, because the Beaufort family are warriors who never run away. After shouting that at the monster, the blonde charges forward at a high speed. Now pay attention here, the knight easily defends himself, but a blinding light erupts as a voice congratulates the boy for holding on this long as well. Julian finally appears on the scene, once again saving the young knight's life. Though his spirit sword shatters from the monster's attack, our hero refuses to give up his position on the front. Standing before them, Julian is determined to show what it means for a veteran to guide his junior. At the moment the hero appears, Cedric feels insulted instead of relieved. He tells Julian to mind his own business, but now is definitely not the time for the blonde to be stubborn. The hero asks if he's happy to die here, believing that Cedric must be aiming for some high ideal. So the question is, was all this effort for nothing? Since he cannot answer, Cedric lets Julian fight, though he doubts someone who ran from a trap can win. The monster charges forward, asking what the boy plans to do with such a toy. With one strike, he destroys the hero's sword again and sends him flying. Enraged, the beast tells the hero to find a real sword for this duel, but Julian says the blade isn't his. The knight says he cannot pierce armor without a weapon, but the hero says he can still run, surprising everyone. That's exactly what Cedric expected, seeing as Julian interrupted a duel and then showed up with a flimsy blade. Worst of all, his companion Alara wants to abandon the fight since they heard of the knight's code. The monster becomes extremely furious and charges in for one final attack. However, Julian manages to dodge with a high jump that confuses the horse, causing the knight to fall from his mount. He already knew the monster's plan, because a lancer's attack always comes from a direct charge. You feel that too, right? Julian uses the enemy's nature against him while conjuring a massive energy arrow and telling Cedric to listen closely. He says that retreating isn't giving up and finally launches that spell toward the skeletal knight. It hits directly, passing over the blonde and wiping out everything in its path. Julian knew this monster had boosted stats from its mount, and once it falls, it becomes just a regular soldier. That is why even in the official rankings, the protagonist led with double the points of the second contender. Julian can hardly believe he won, with a ranking above the best in the country. But now Cedric looks at the hero differently, trying to understand how Julian achieves such incredible results. With nothing else left to conquer in the tower, the two return to the hall where noble houses rush to recruit them. Naturally, the protagonist receives the most offers, having been the one to defeat the final boss. But even as he is ignored by the crowd, Cedric receives an unexpected visitor. The blonde recognizes Lord Alistair, who feels honored to be remembered by someone as talented as Cedric. Cedric says the protagonist is on the other side, but Alistair didn't come to the wrong person. The one he seeks is Cedric. The blonde questions being invited to the Shadow Order after such a display, but the leader suggests they talk in the carriage. And as for Julian, since he proved to be even more impressive than expected, Alistair thought of something better than an invitation for the hero, who is now highly sought after. But then, you and I watch as every phone begins to ring. All right, you and I are watching the moment a massive rift is detected at St. Jude's Academy. 2 master knights have already fallen, and the scale of this disaster is projected to hit 100,000 souls. But the worst part is where this is happening. Julian checks his device and sees frantic messages from his sister, Alara. Something is horribly wrong at her school. The Legion officers order him to retreat, but Julian isn't listening to anyone right now. By the time they turn around, he's gone. He's sprinting toward the academy, pushed by pure desperation to reach Alara before it's too late. At the scene, chaos reigns. Knights are holding back the desperate crowds while reporters scramble to capture the carnage. Parents are screaming, begging to go in for their children, but the perimeter is locked down tight. The guards are terrified themselves, but orders are orders. However, one person doesn't care about rules and vaults right over the barricade. It's Julian. This is his first time seeing a rift collapse this close, and the air is thick with death. He tries to call Alara, but there's no signal. The mana density is so thick it's jamming all communications. Before he can move, a beast lunges from the shadows. Finding his sister will have to wait. He has to survive first. Julian summons his blade and strikes with a lightning-fast diagonal cut, hoping to end this quickly. But the beast doesn't even flinch. It's like his steel is a toothpick. Even the low-tier monsters here are stronger than anything he faced in the trials. Watch this move closely. Julian ditches the sword and coats his fist in raw energy, shattering the beast with a single, devastating punch. One down, but he's far from finished. Navigating through the smoke and rubble, he spots a wounded soldier, someone who definitely shouldn't be here. Inside the Shadow Legion leader's carriage, Conrad watches the death toll rise on the news. The carnage is a haunting mirror of the day his parents were taken by the rift. Sir Alistair tries to comfort the boy, reminding him of how brave they were 3 years ago in Ashford. The Grandmaster knew the truth because he leads a noble house built on justice. But Conrad knows that if the legendary knights had only arrived sooner, his family would be alive. Even now, the legendary tier is nowhere to be seen. Frustrated, Conrad demands to know what they're actually doing. Alistair drops a heavy truth. They aren't coming. It's a cold dose of reality that leaves the boy stunned. Even if they did decide to help, they'd arrive far too late to save anyone trapped inside that school. Conrad presses for an answer. There's only one way to stop this madness, by destroying the rift's core at the center. He explains that the core is a singularity, a bridge connecting our world to a realm of pure chaos. It takes a god-tier strike to sever that link. Conrad wonders if destroying it really ends the entire invasion for good. Alistair nods, but there are 2 massive problems we need to consider. First, the sheer volume of monsters makes it impossible to even reach the target. Second, the core is protected by guardians. Every single one of them is legendary tier, far beyond anything a normal knight can handle. Conrad is speechless. He's never even heard of a monster with that kind of terrifying power before. Even if someone manages to find the core, a legendary beast is a death sentence for any regular adventurer. The ones fighting now are just sacrifices. Currently, the Order of the Silver Wing is in charge, led by Baron Arthur and his second-in-command, Lady Serena. Alistair looks at his device, thinking about how cruel and ironic fate can be in times like this. Back inside the Academy ruins, Julian realizes the wounded man is wearing the Silver Wing colors, but the knight is confused why a student is here. Julian holds him, explaining his sister is trapped inside, but the knight's condition is rapidly fading. With his final breath, the man gasps out Lady Serena's name. Julian hears it clearly before the soldier's life finally fades away. Deeper in the school, one of Serena's knights is hoisted up and executed right before her eyes. The brutality is too much. Serena collapses to her knees, screaming in pure agony at her own helplessness, while Julian is rushing toward her. But first, he has to find Alara. Julian kicks open a door and nearly falls into a literal pit of molten lava. He barely lunges across to the other side. It's a terrifying sight. The rift is starting to consume the reality of the school itself. Alara should be in the second-year wing, so Julian decides to head for the upper floors. But the spatial magic is unstable. Without a set path, the next room he enters could be anywhere. Julian is exhausted from overusing his magic since the experiment, but he knows, and you and I know, he can't stop now. Stick with me. You and I are about to watch Julian finally tap into his real power. Out of nowhere, a swarm of beasts erupts, shattering the brief moment of peace. Even while feeling his strength fade, our hero snaps into action, shouting for the crowd to clear out as he summons his remaining power. Deep inside the great archives, Alice hides with her senior, Lady Rosaline, and apologizes for dragging her into this mess. But Rosaline just gives her a playful flick, refusing to let her friend carry any of the guilt for this situation. Especially since she was the one who insisted on coming to the archives. Even now, Alice is desperately trying to contact her brother, Julian. So, Rosaline asks if he is the one, and she yells, "Yes." Alice is vibrating with excitement, but her friend isn't sold. A scholar with zero magic isn't much of a savior. Honestly, Rosaline thinks his strength is irrelevant. They are completely on their own in this nightmare. Alice stays firm, though. She is confident her brother will save them since he was ranked elite in the academy finals. Despite her unwavering faith, her friend still wonders if they have even a prayer of escaping with their current limited abilities. Now watch closely. An explosion rocks the hall, putting Rosaline on high alert as poor Alice trembles in fear. A massive behemoth is looming over them from the shelves, staring down at its helpless prey in pure hunger. The beast lunges, cleaving the heavy oak shelves in two as the girls barely dive out of the way. Lady Rosaline steps up to protect the younger girl, screaming for her to run while she stalls the beast. It is a do-or-die moment with only one chance to summon. When the command is triggered, glowing celestial wings fill the air. But the epic summon is just a tiny white dove. The monster raises its heavy blade to finish them off. As expected, Rosaline had zero luck with her summon. But they have reached the perfect moment, because a heavy fist suddenly connects with the beast's jaw, sending the monster flying across the archives. Through the clouds of dust, Alice's eyes light up with pure relief. Julian stands there, thanking the lady for guarding his sister, and now extends his hand to take his turn protecting her. It is a simple gesture, but to Rosaline, he looks exactly like a prince from the legends. The moment does not last long. The monster recovers from the blow and prepares to strike back. You and I can see Julian is actually enjoying this. Since every beast here is strong as a boss, he has finally found a real challenge. Rosaline remembers him being so timid, but seeing that confident smile now makes her wish she had seen it before graduation. First, Julian grabs a massive table and slams it down to create a barricade for the girls. Then, he does the unthinkable, charging straight at the monster, while pushing the heavy wooden object forward. The Minotaur shatters the wood with a single strike, only to realize the boy was never actually behind the table. Taking advantage of the opening, Julian leaps high for a devastating aerial attack. But the monster swats him away, sending him crashing through rows of archives, while Alice screams in terror for her brother. This thing's hide is tougher than any mountain ogre or skeletal knight he has ever faced in battle before. Just as he doubts himself, his guide, Clara, shouts that these giants always have a weakness in their lower limbs. The system confirms the lead. Julian grins and prepares to move. With a new strategy in mind, our hero rushes back in, ready to topple the Titan. He lands a brutal kick to the beast's leg, and the impact is massive. The giant begins to stumble, giving them hope. Desperate, the monster unhinges its jaw, trying to swallow Julian whole in a final surge. That is exactly what he wanted. The beast's soft palate is wide open. Julian triggers a massive energy blast, shredding the monster from the inside, where its heavy armor cannot protect it. Alice throws her arms around him, but Julian knows it was her gift that saved them. It is the enchanted necklace she gave him back at the academy commencement. Because Alice's true feelings were locked inside, they manifested as a massive well of stored power. Alice is just glad her heart managed to reach him when he needed it most. That stone in her hair is a rare magic accessory that acts as a beacon to let Julian find her anywhere. Now he knows why she always wore it, and he thanks her. He explains that finding her on this floor was no accident. He followed a white pigeon right to the archive's doors. Alice laughs, admitting that part was just a total coincidence. Julian turns to their companion, asking if she is the famous Lady Rosaline. She is stunned he knows her. Trust me, Julian never forgets a top-ranked student, and that's how this legendary trio finally unites. Arthur thanks her for the rescue, but stick with me, Elinor doesn't look happy at all. Not long ago, she overheard the other nobles gossiping about her ascension in the stone corridors. They mocked her as the fool, the Academy's most powerless and pathetic sage. After facing off against the so-called hero just moments before her rescue, Elinor is completely fed up with arrogant people like that. Her declaration catches Arthur's eye, but little Alice quickly offers a clumsy excuse to change the subject. That is, until a shadow looms over them, mocking their little moment of joy. A man with a massive blade strapped to his back approaches, asking if he missed the party. Arthur warns the stranger to stay back. Worst of all, this man's mana is heavy with a terrifying intent to kill. Pay attention here. Elinor identifies him as Lord Alistair, the second-ranked S-tier paladin and the legendary master of the Silver Knights. Alistair smiles, praising the girl for knowing his name, exactly what he expects from a top student. Even so, the three friends don't look welcoming at all. The golden-haired knight tells them to relax, claiming he is on a top-secret royal mission before suddenly vanishing back to his official duties. However, that duty takes a dark turn when Alistair reappears, his spear leveled at Arthur's throat, vowing to execute the young boy. Outside the castle walls, a lady notes that her master has rushed ahead again, while her companion scoffs at the idea of him losing. But that's not her concern. Their real goal is making sure their prey has absolutely nowhere left to run. Back in the library, Arthur takes a direct hit as his sister watches in horror. Arthur shouts for her to stay back, demanding to know why an S-tier paladin would target someone like him. Alistair tells them to be quiet and charges, summoning a swarm of clones built from pure illusions. Arthur actually dodges the first strike, shocking the knight since his illusionary attacks are supposed to look completely distorted. And even though the paladin wasn't even trying yet, Arthur evaded with ease, something no low-ranking knight should be able to do. Annoyed, the paladin decides to change his target and go after Arthur's sister instead. In a heartbeat, the steel is inches away. You saw that too, right? Arthur throws himself in front of her, shoving the paladin back with such force that he goes sliding across the floor. Now Alistair is curious if this boy is truly just some high-ranking knight in disguise. Arthur introduces himself as a lowly rank 𝒓𝒊𝒕𝒆𝒅, making the paladin break out into fits of hysterical laughter. But then Alistair turns furious, feeling insulted by the boy's pathetic claim. Arthur desperately tries to show his official registration card to prove he isn't lying. Ignoring him completely, Alistair lunges forward with a deadly skill called the Spear of Death. Arthur dodges, but the blade still grazes his skin, proving the terrifying reality that these illusions can actually kill. Alistair laughs, asking if he finds it funny that his magic can turn lies into truth and truth into lies. Arthur isn't backing down, convinced he can just shatter every single illusion the man creates. But Alistair scoffs, claiming it's useless before countering Arthur's move with a perfect mirror image that sends the boy crashing down to his knees. Victorious, Alistair calls the boy soft as Arthur finally witnesses the overwhelming might of a true S-tier warrior. The Golden Knight turns his attention to the girls. He muses that killing a fake rank F knight might be fun, but seeing the pure despair on Arthur's face is far more satisfying. Arthur tries to stand with all his remaining strength, but he's helpless as Alistair vows to slaughter them all. In that dark moment, Arthur realizes he was wrong about the nature of his own strength. He only survived this long because of the successor's borrowed aid, making him wonder if he truly deserves to be called a sage without magic. As a lowly rank F, there is no way he can ever hope to defeat an S-tier paladin. Surrender feels like the only option, but the system's voice echoes in his mind, asking if he's truly willing to die. It asks if he's okay with losing his sister forever, and that finally snaps Arthur back to his senses. Of course, Arthur screams that he won't let anything happen to her, making the great sage proud. To move forward, he must strike this man down. Arthur must reach those eternal fields once again if he ever hopes to protect the people most precious to him. So trust me, you and I are about to see the true power of the martial sage peak as Arthur wishes for victory and strikes. All right, you and I are about to see what happens when a legend passes down the ultimate divine blade. A shimmering tear in space-time rips open right before Sela's. But there is a warning from the saint. If the boy's resolve wavers, his soul will be swallowed by the blade's dark, murderous aura. Sela's does not care about the risk anymore. Ever since that day, he made a vow that changed everything. He promised himself he would never let another chance slip away, regardless of the heavy price. The moment he seizes the blade from the rift, a massive vortex of energy erupts from below. Gareth and the ladies can only stare in shock. The blonde knight looks worried, while the girls feel a spark of hope. Overflowing with raw power, Sela's raises the divine blade, drawing in an unbelievable amount of magical energy. Ancient runes glow on the living steel. Without a single doubt, Sela's challenges the elite knight to do his worst. Between the dawn and the dusk high above, there are powers that no mortal man can ever bind. Every soul dreams of the heavens, reaching for that ninth realm where the legendary gods once walked. That is where this blade was forged. Now, it will protect Alara and Seraphina in this desperate battle. Alara is frozen, watching her brother. Even the blonde knight wonders if this is actually the same boy he fought. Gareth just smirks, joking that legendary weapons always tend to ruin a good fight. But before he can finish, Sela's vanishes. He reappears like a lightning bolt, delivering a devastating and incredibly heavy blow. The impact slams the elite knight into the stone wall, mirroring exactly what happened to Sela's earlier. Bleeding, Gareth laughs at the sheer madness of it all, but Sela's remains silent. He is not playing around. Now, pay attention here. Sela's was just a punching bag, but everything is about to flip. Seraphina is stunned, asking if Sela's is always this intense. His sister can only shake her head, admitting she has never actually seen him fight like this before. The girl has to agree. This boy truly does not seem like the brother she knows. Back in the clash, Sela's coldly asks the knight if he would prefer to leave quietly now. The blonde pretends to think about it for a second before shouting that there is no way he is quitting. He charges again with his spear. He is sure his master-level technique will prevail, convinced that Sela's is just using a lucky trick. The knight strikes repeatedly, but Sela's keeps a perfect defense, countering every single thrust with ease. The blonde noble lunges one more time, but Sela's deflects him without breaking a sweat. Gareth does not recognize the blade, but he knows spears usually hold the advantage over any sword. However, Sela's proves him wrong by slipping inside his guard, nearly landing a fatal blow that the knight barely avoids by ducking. Swiftly, the adventurer quickly repositions and takes a stance to strike again, but Sela's kicks the weapon, pinning it firmly to the stone floor. Sela's leaps onto the spear's shaft for leverage, delivering a powerful downward strike that forces Gareth to block with everything. Gareth screams, asking if he has any fear left. Sela's eyes are empty. He looks like he has lost his mind. You and I can see the blade's aura is taking over. Sela's is getting reckless, making the spears reach useless. Once more, the blonde narrowly avoids death. This time, however, he takes a deep cut across his right shoulder. Desperate, he tries every trick in the book to regain control of this losing battle. Failing that, Gareth smashes through a wall, making a frantic run for the long stone gallery. When Sela's gives chase, the knight feels a surge of pride in his clever tactical retreat. Staring Sela's down, Gareth admits the boy is genuinely formidable. He confesses that if he had known about this hidden power, he would have never dared to cross him. But now, he suddenly drops his weapon. To our hero's surprise, Sela's is not the only one with a trump card. As he summons a glowing spear, Gareth explains how light refraction can create illusions. Conveniently, his new weapon can turn those mirages into cold, hard reality. Behold the high-tier phantom lance. Promptly, the blonde knight asks if Silas remembers the very first move he used on him at the start of this fight. That is because this lance syncs perfectly with his own innate talent. Additionally, Gareth admits he lured Silas into this narrow gallery, specifically to ensure his barrage of strikes would be impossible to dodge. But if that is the case, Silas says he will just cut through them all, and trust me, you and I are going to love seeing how this ends. All right, you and I are about to see Arthur Sterling charge forward, daring the hero to actually try and stop him. Clutching his blade, Arthur is certain that by forging deeper bonds, he will reach heights that no other knight could ever dream of achieving. With a sharp glare, Arthur unleashes a massive surge of mana from his steel and blitzes the clones at a terrifying speed. Before they clash, Lord Alistair realizes the situation is spiraling, and once the dust settles, the entire battlefield is left completely scorched. Acting on pure instinct, Sir Silas decides it is time to retreat from this madness. With the immediate danger gone, the ladies rush to the knight's side, but he only cares about whether they have been hurt or not. He is just relieved that this chaotic nightmare finally seems to be drawing to a close. Moments later, the noble's men ask if he is really abandoning the hunt over an Imperial tier rift, but Alistair insists there is simply no other choice. Especially since his horrific wounds are clearly enough to put most men in an early grave. His subordinates are stunned, wondering what kind of monster could have mangled their young master so badly. Regardless, Alistair scoffs, calling anyone a fool who risks their life for such a pitiful reward. Having made his final choice, the young noble informs the Duke over a communication crystal that the mission failed, and clearly, the Duke is absolutely livid with him. Cutting straight to the point, Alistair suggests hiring an Imperial-ranked assassin next time, though he warns that even that might not be enough once the entire kingdom hears about this. Trust me, everyone is about to witness the rise of a titan named Arthur Sterling. Back at the ruins of the duel, the girls frantically check on the young knight's condition. Thankfully, none of those nasty gashes managed to hit anything vital. Even so, that mysterious shadow managed to vanish, and while Alice notes Arthur's sudden change, he credits it all to the power of that legendary sword. But just as he goes to show the ladies his prize, it begins to dissolve into thin air. It seems that once his focus slips, the blade simply ceases to exist. Arthur explains that he has not quite mastered how to summon the blade at will just yet. Suddenly, a message crystal in his pocket glows, which is bizarre given the lack of mana here. Shockingly, it is a letter from Alistair apologizing for the ambush. Understandably, our hero is left speechless and has no idea how to even respond. Then, a deafening roar shakes the earth, forcing the girls to duck for their lives. A second message from Alistair mentions he forgot to say he used an artifact to trigger the breach early. Now pay attention, because while Arthur is fuming, a massive beast erupts from the ground right beneath their feet. He screams that they have to move, telling them not to tell their master what happens next as he prepares to make a move. In a flash, he leaps through the window with both girls, plummeting several stories down toward the cold, hard ground. Funny enough, the girls are more worried about the property damage, which is exactly why he wanted them to stay quiet. Regardless, the monster, a massive carnivorous plant beast, reveals its true form. It corners the group outside, and Arthur desperately tells Catherine to keep his younger sister safe at all costs. With things looking grim, Arthur tries to focus every ounce of his soul to summon that celestial blade again. But it is not as simple as before, no matter how hard he tries to clear his mind. Seeing his sister's terrified face, Arthur realizes he is not actually focused. He is drowning in pure, unadulterated panic. Meanwhile, the plant ignores them because it already has a prize. Seraphina is about to become a snack for the monster. Seeing this, Arthur puts everything into a desperate, high-speed charge. He tears through the creature's limbs and manages to pull her into his arms. Miraculously, she is still breathing, though she can barely speak as he tells her to rest. Before she fades out, she hands him a powerful artifact, the Ring of Stability, designed to contain a rift's collapse. It is meant to absorb the Guardian once its core has been shattered in battle. And if this plan actually works, it might just end this horrific nightmare for good. Arthur knows exactly what he has to do, and gripping that ring, he vows that her sacrifice will not be in vain. Miles away, Alistair is being healed in a carriage, with only 1 minute left before the entire rift completely caves in. If that happens, the entire Eastern Kingdom will be swarmed by a tide of monsters. So, you and I are left watching Arthur, who holds the fate of the entire world in his hands. This time, his aura blade burns brighter than ever, fueled by the echoes of that legendary celestial sword. Stick with me, we're about to see Arthur finally turn the tides. Before, he couldn't scratch an ogre, but now, he's shredding these tentacles like paper. Looking back, he sees the ladies haven't lost faith. Seeing their eyes, Arthur decides it's time to believe in himself, too. The monster's wounds are already knitting back together. It's fast, and Arthur knows a direct head-on clash is a death sentence. The blade dances through the air, dodging every strike while using the beast's own massive frame as a bridge. Out of nowhere, a winged terror swoops in to block him. Only 20 seconds remain on the clock. 18 seconds left. Pay attention here, because Arthur isn't giving up. He's thrown back, but he launches himself forward using a stray vine. 12 seconds. He's practically breathing down the neck of that massive, man-eating plant. 10 seconds. Arthur hangs directly over the monster's glowing core, right on the edge of victory or total disaster. The countdown hits 5 seconds as he slashes through the core's final layers of defense. 4 seconds, a crack appears. 3 seconds, Arthur puts every ounce of strength into one final, desperate push. With only 2 seconds on the clock, the core finally shatters, and he lunges for Lady Seraphina's sacred relic. At the very last heartbeat, he activates the device, flooding the entire cavern with a blinding, divine golden radiance. Meanwhile, far away in the Western Empire, deep within the Iron Citadel, high-ranking officials huddle around magical scrying maps. Suddenly, a scout screams that the Eastern Kingdom is suffering a massive abyssal breach. Strangely, the High Commander actually looks pleased. He claims the destruction went exactly as planned. Lord Alistair is already mobilizing 5 elite Imperial orders to seize the Eastern territories. Suddenly, a voice cuts through the room, demanding the Sector 5 contract. It's Sir James Thorne, the Empire's deadliest knight and the mastermind behind their most brutal military strategies. The man declares his order will handle the mess alone, and the commander doesn't hesitate to grant him full authority. If they can occupy the Eastern Kingdom, every dungeon in the Great Ocean belongs to the Empire. But then the magic maps flicker. The breach energy is vanishing. The entire disaster process just plummeted to 0%. The commander roars in disbelief. This is impossible. Even James is stunned. He knows how hard it would be for even him to stop a breach like that. He assumes the Grand Alliance of Orders must have finally sent their top heroes into the fray. 1 week later, you and I find Arthur at the infirmary. The breach is finally stable, now just a managed training zone. But the cost was heavy. The Order of Silver Wings lost 90% of their knights, leaving only Seraphina. By securing the rights to the breach, they've started earning coin from passing mercenaries. Still, Arthur knows gold can't truly mend a broken family. A soft knock sounds at Seraphina's door. She tells the visitor they may enter. It's our hero, and his presence brings a genuine spark of joy to the wounded lady's face. He immediately asks how her recovery is going. Seraphina says she begins training tomorrow. She has to get back to the dungeons to keep her order alive. Arthur smiles and tells her to call him whenever she needs a sword. Seraphina looks like she's hiding a secret. But before she can speak, the 2 academy students burst into the room. Arthur sighs, asking how they even got in. Alice just waves a master access card she borrowed earlier. Catherine is just relieved to have finally tracked the hero down. She shoves an enchanted mirror in his face, showing something that looks pretty serious. After his big victory, a story leaked. Arthur supposedly said he fought solely to protect the woman he loves. Catherine insists this is a disaster and that the whole town is getting the wrong idea. But in Arthur's mind, there's nothing wrong with openly declaring his love for his dear sister. He asks why he can't speak his mind, leaving the poor student absolutely flustered. The mirror starts glowing with endless new notifications. She's ready to smash it. Alice mentions that the combat footage her friend shared to find work has gone absolutely viral across the kingdom. Between that and the news articles, the girl is now the most famous face in the realm. Trust me, you and I will definitely be seeing more of him soon. All right, you and I are about to witness the moment a mysterious light suddenly glows on the girl's forehead, making Arthur lean in closer. In that instant, the sage activates a brand new skill through the system called Divine Revelation. This power predicts the future, claiming Claire has the potential for an advanced class if she can somehow gain 300,000 loyal fans. Arthur had heard rumors of knights changing their professions before. But get this, if she masters an advanced class while keeping her current knowledge, she would become an absolutely unstoppable force in the kingdom. Naturally, Claire is completely confused by the mission. But remembering the constant mockery and Arthur's meteoric rise, she agrees to do whatever it takes for a chance to finally be reborn as someone strong. Claire grabs Arthur's shoulders and declares that if they go viral now, the entire kingdom is going to lose its mind. She asks if he will take full responsibility for her future, and Arthur obviously agrees without a second thought. And just like that, their destiny together is officially set in stone. Now pay attention, because Arthur's first bold suggestion is to film a live stream inside a dangerous monster dungeon. Later, Claire hears a happy family playing in the neighboring yard, their laughter echoing through the air as she heads home. She watches as an older sister, named Hina, gently kneels down to teach her younger sibling how to tie her shoelaces. But instead of feeling warm, this image of family becomes a painful trigger for poor Claire. Her own sister, Helen, was a prodigy with 2 classes, while Claire remained nothing but a forgotten shadow. However, even she had one moment of glory the day she aced a massive exam at the academy. Her mother offered a small congratulations, though it lacked any real warmth since Claire still couldn't compare to her sister. That tiny bit of praise fueled her, but then Helen became an S-rank adventurer and abandoned the family entirely. It was a cold move that left Claire to carry the heavy burden of their parents' expectations. She was left alone to deal with the crushing weight of her family's broken dreams. With a useless class, daily humiliation became her new normal. And her mother even twisted the girl's bad luck into pure hatred, blaming her for everything despite Claire's desperate pleas for understanding. In her mother's eyes, Claire was the reason Helen had left. Her assigned class is called Jester, and it really only serves to perform silly little party tricks. Claire thought focusing on her studies might save her, but reality was cruel. One day, she received a heartless letter from her parents officially disowning her from the family. Even after reading something so soul-crushing, the girl didn't lash out with any anger. She just cried, hoping to become a great adventurer and bring her broken family back together. Recalling this painful past is devastating, but it also reignites her burning determination to prove everyone wrong. Arthur meets Claire at a mid-level dungeon known as the 𝒂𝒓𝒊𝒕𝒆𝒅 for their stream. Claire is worried about her subscriber count, but our hero assures her that his secret strategy is going to work. You and I know how popular dungeon live streams are getting on platforms like Magic Mirror, and they're about to dive right in. Claire starts setting up the camera, but Arthur notices she has it set to portrait mode, which isn't great, so he steps in to change it to a wider view. Arthur explains that a horizontal view is much better for a dungeon's scale. Claire is impressed by his expertise, but he hides the fact that he stayed up all night studying for her. With everything ready, the two finally enter the dark dungeon. The moment they step inside, the stream goes live with a few curious viewers. Claire greets the audience, but the comments are mostly focused on how incredibly handsome Arthur looks. A donation suddenly pops up, so they both offer thanks, promising to use the funds to help victims of dungeon disasters. The crowd is growing fast, so it is time to start the show. Their goal today is to hunt 20 mana rabbits on the 𝒂𝒔𝒉's first floor in under 1 minute. Claire feels the massive pressure of the audience, but Arthur gives the signal, and the viewers start cheering her on with absolute excitement. She quickly summons a deck of cards, leaving the confused audience wondering where the magic pigeons are. Suddenly, those cards turn razor sharp and pierce right through the monsters. This is the only attack skill the Jester class has, which is honestly pretty terrifying. Still, Claire knows there's no turning back. Claire has to give it her all now. Trust me, you're going to want to see what happens next. Claire strikes with her cards, but out of nowhere, a beast shreds her deck. It is a 𝒓𝒄𝒄 rabbit, a rare, deadly variant. Without missing a beat, the creature lunges straight for her throat. You and I are about to see just how fast Alaric can move when his friends are in danger. He apologizes for being late and obliterates the monster in a single, terrifying flash. Claire bursts into tears immediately, because this was supposed to be a simple scouting mission. Our hero says he is sorry again, and the girl pouts, saying she will only forgive him if he buys her a spiced tea. Breaking the warmth, Alaric suddenly senses a presence and shoves Claire aside just in time. This zone was supposed to be weapon-free, yet a jagged knife thuds deep into the soil. Alaric demands the coward show himself, and a hooded figure emerges, whispering that the rumors of his skill were true. He mentions something about the high sage, leaving the magical viewers watching through the crystal confused. Now pay attention here, because this is where the stakes get dangerously high. The assassin teleports behind Claire, holding a blade to her neck. Before she can even scream, the hooded freak draws blood, piercing her skin ever so slightly. Thankfully, Alaric intervenes, firing a magical bolt that strikes the enemy square in the skull, making them think it is finally over. But obviously, a high-level assassin would not go down that easily. Even after being hit, his head is completely hollow, a sight that leaves our hero stunned. Suddenly, more figures emerge from the shadows, along with a massive, terrifying spider beast. Claire explains they are puppeteers, a forbidden class that controls magical dolls to do their dirty work. A system quest flashes before Alaric, offering 100 gold sovereigns to slay the assassin. Claire notices the message is not from the high sages, while distant nobles start mocking them on the magical broadcast. The comments are brutal, telling them there is no hope and they should run. A flood of negative energy hits the stream as people start betting on their certain deaths. I know what you are thinking. It looks bad, right? But Alaric knows if they find the real body, they win. Smirking, our hero decides to trust Claire to guide him while he handles the heavy lifting. The assassin laughs at the idea of him fighting alone, mocking Claire's class and leaving the poor girl visibly shaken. Alaric realizes the world sees the dilettante class as nothing more than a joke for bored nobles. But he fires back, calling the assassins just as useless, which absolutely sends the enemy into a rage. Shouting insults, the hooded man sends his puppets charging forward for the kill. Protecting his partner, Alaric sharpens his focus and summons the legendary celestial sword once again. Weapon in hand, the protagonist lunges forward, leaving Claire completely breathless. His whole plan was to provoke the enemy and draw every bit of attention onto himself. By keeping them busy, he gives her the space she needs to find a way out. The girl realizes this is what true trust feels like, a far cry from her cold family back home. Claire knows the crushing weight of being forced to succeed better than anyone else. But despite the fear, she finds herself smiling, because for the first time she is actually happy. Standing tall, she summons a massive cloud of pigeons that swarm across the battlefield. The enemy mocks the birds as useless, but Claire just tells Alaric to keep the pressure on. She pours her energy into the spell, hoping the viewers see that even a dilettante can be incredible if they try. The world thinks this class is impossible to play without a full party of knights. But the real secret lies in its unmatched ability to distract. In this moment, Claire actually links her mind to the birds. Months of secret training finally pay off as one bird spots the assassin's true location. She shouts the coordinates at 8 o'clock, and Alaric cleaves through a tree, closing the distance with insane speed. Realizing he has been found out, the assassin finally starts to panic. But it is too late. Alaric reaches the control artifact and shatters it with the celestial sword. As the enemy falls to his knees, Claire mocks him with the same insults he used against her. And that is where we leave it, with a single bird delivering the final, embarrassing punishment. Justice served. Let us dive into the story of a knight who is about to change his fate forever. First, Jude makes a mysterious request to his companion. Though she is embarrassed, the hero insists. So Clara strikes a dramatic pose, declaring that justice knows no bounds across the entire kingdom. Then Clara mimics the stance, and adds that true loyalty also transcends all dimensions. The two finish with a perfectly timed pose, leaving the entire crowd of commoners laughing in absolute joy. That night, the knight praises Clara for her performance, and they share a respectful handshake of mutual gratitude. Our hero suggests heading back to the manor, but the lady stops him, insisting on thanking him one more time. Jude tells her that victory was only possible through her brilliant strategy. However, that was not what she meant at all. Brushing the praise aside, she changes the subject to explain her true feelings clearly. Clara asks if she truly heard Jude use her casual name earlier. Flustered, the knight immediately apologizes for his lack of proper etiquette. To his shock, she was not offended. In fact, her reaction was something he never expected. With a warm smile, she clarifies that from this day forward, he should simply address her as Sarah. Now pay attention here. In a shadowy chamber, a mysterious noblewoman remarks that the pair did well cleaning up the mess. While she finds the situation amusing, the girl decides it is finally time to meet Sarah in the flesh. Days later, Sarah reaches 2 million followers in the capital, and Jude sends his congratulations through a messenger bird. He encourages her to keep searching for a noble position, but Rose replies with a weary sticker. Meanwhile, Jude tells himself he must also strive harder. Another letter arrives. Every major guild in the realm now wants him as their grand promotional face. Frustrated that they see him as a mere puppet instead of a warrior, Jude angrily kicks a stone. Thinking of Arisa, the gold is tempting, but as she warned, a true knight must never succumb to greed. Jude longs to conquer ancient ruins that remain untouched by man. He wonders if it is too bold a dream, but he persists. After all, he was born to be an adventurer. Suddenly, a letter from Seraphina arrives, telling him to meet at the old academy ruins. Curious, he heads to the place, which now serves as the dungeon command. Only a few months have passed, yet the fortress is already bustling with many soldiers and mages. An elder lady approaches, asking if he is the famed Lord Killian she has heard about. She mentions she has been expecting him, and offers to lead the way to Seraphina's quarters. Walking through the halls, Jude asks if it is safe for civilians here. The woman assures him the wards are quite strong. Besides, she feels safe knowing the kingdom's hero is walking right beside her. The woman reveals she is the mother of Julian, a fallen knight of the Golden Falcons. Jude knows all too well the tragedy that befell them. She says her son saw Jude at the Castle of Shadows and talked of his bravery until his final breath. Overcome with guilt, Jude shouts an apology, blaming himself for not arriving in time to save the boy. The mother pauses, looking at him kindly, and tells the young knight not to torment his own soul. You and I both know the truth here. One man could never have saved 89 fallen knights alone. She insists it is not his burden to carry. As the hero reflects on her words, the mother continues her story. Julian would have been happy just knowing Jude was the one who cleared the dungeon, because to him, our protagonist was the ultimate hero. At the conversation's end, Seraphina finally appears, and the two bid the lady farewell before finding a moment of silence together. To ease the tension, she asks if the citadel is impressive, given how magic can literally shift the very seasons. But behind her stands a memorial for her lost brothers-in-arms. It serves as a grim reminder of their new authority. She honestly wonders if they can even call this victory a true triumph. Jude suggests they view it as a win, if only to honor those who fell on the battlefield. If there are a few things left to protect, the knight vows to move forward without losing a single one. Seraphina smiles, agreeing to find peace in that thought. In the end, they only have the present moment to breathe. Changing her tone, she asks to speak of something strange. Then, she summons her enchanted staff from thin air. Without warning, she challenges our hero to a serious duel to test their true limits. Surprised but ready, Jude promises not to hold back. They face each other as the winds of battle rise. And that is where we leave them, with Seraphina questioning if Jude is truly the legendary sage of prophecy. All right, stick with me because this duel is about to get absolutely electrifying. Seraphina laughs, launching 4 lightning orbs. Our hero, Arthur, barely dodges, but she just smirks, calling his instant reactions a total pain to deal with. Arthur tries a clever feint, darting left to bait her so he can strike from the right flank. But his instincts scream that a simple trick like that won't lead to success. So he flips the script and commits to a full attack from the left. Still, he can't see a win. He retreats to rethink, panicking as this girl reads his every move before he even makes them. Seraphina taunts him, asking if he really can't handle a delicate lady like her. Arthur charges back, telling her to stop playing around. If she's reading his mind, he'll just use pure, overwhelming force to break her. But Seraphina doesn't even flinch. She just stands there, smiling. Clang! She effortlessly blocks his heavy strike using nothing but her magical wand. Feeling smug, she points out his master is screaming in the back. Arthur's stunned. How could she possibly know that? Her answer is a brutal kick that shatters his guard and sends him tumbling. And yeah, Master Alaric is absolutely losing his mind. She finds it amusing that he jumped back, just to soften the impact of her blow. Now watch this part closely. Arthur realizes he's facing his deadliest opponent since he awakened his true powers. Amused by his struggle, she realizes she hasn't even told him what her class is yet. Looking at her wand and spells, Arthur takes a guess. A maestro. He's spot on. It's a legendary class that controls the entire battlefield like a grand musical performance. It's powerful, sure, but not as rare as his sage status. Still, Arthur is completely stuck on how to fight back. She explains that a maestro's job is to harmonize and lead the entire team to victory. Then she asks to hear his melody. Suddenly, her symphony skill erupts, trapping the entire arena in a cage of sound. Arthur tries to weave through the magical notes at high speed. But she warns him there's no escape. A massive note detonates, hitting him with a devastating magical shockwave. She presses the advantage, raining down blows that nearly end it until Arthur is finally trapped. He's pinned against the wall. She focuses all her power into one final point, crushing his defenses and claiming the win. Seraphina explains that in any real duel, you have to master rhythm and breathing. Combat, just like music, is all about the flow of energy. You can't let your enemy move freely. You have to perceive their intent and control their every step. That's when it hits him. His prediction failed because she was literally reading the rhythm of his lungs. You and I both know he's not done yet, but how does he overcome someone who hears his heart? She tells him he already knows the answer. She hears a song inside him, a melody that wants to fly free. Without another word, she ends the lesson and readies a finishing strike. As Arthur ponders her words, the sage's voice echoes in his mind, telling him to just enjoy the freedom of battle. Everything clicks, if she can read the flow and the timing of every single strike he makes. Then he'll just throw the script away and fight with pure improvisation. Seraphina feels the shift instantly. Arthur locks in, deciding he's done fighting just to meet others' expectations. He'd been carrying the weight of the whole world on his shoulders. People trusted him, and that became a burden. But now, he's calm. He deflects her next strike with a grin, finally enjoying the dance. Then he goes for it. He literally runs across her musical notes. He closes the gap and fires 2 blasts right past her head. He solidifies the energy, using it to vault high into the air. Suddenly, he's the one with the perfect vantage point. Seraphina isn't scared, though. Seeing him grow like this makes her incredibly proud. She tosses her wand aside, forfeiting the match. They collapse on the grass together, laughing about their mistakes. She admits a maestro's biggest flaw is lacking a killer move, since they're built to support, not to slay. Arthur finally confesses how much he was worrying about his future as a true knight. So you and I can see he's finally found his path. Thanks to her, his heart is finally free. All right, you and I are jumping back in as Arthur stands before a legend who refuses his gratitude. Lady Seraphina is just happy she finally got to duel our champion, though her intense gaze makes him quite nervous. Then, out of nowhere, she asks if the young knight is interested in joining the Argent Order. Truthfully, she had been waiting to extend this invitation ever since Arthur visited her in the castle infirmary. Their code is simple: to soar through the infinite sky, completely unshackled by the chains of the world. Arthur wonders what it truly means for a knight to fly that high, but Seraphina knows he fits perfectly. Before he gives his answer, our protagonist has one specific request for the lady of the house. Once she agrees, Arthur asks that they never stand in his way as he continues to push forward. With his new power, he wants to see exactly how high he can climb toward the adventurer's ultimate peak. Seraphina smiles and extends her hand to seal the pact, laughing that no one could possibly stop him now. With mutual respect and a firm handshake, Arthur officially becomes the newest member of the Argent Order. Now pay attention, because that night, while Arthur slept, a strange and twisted dream began to take hold. He finds himself in a void of pure white, wondering where he is until a mysterious voice calls out. Arthur demands to know who's there, facing a massive gate bound in heavy iron chains. The voice claims to be his predecessor. Suddenly, a magical message appears, asking if the boy will accept the power of the Shadow Guardian. The atmosphere feels dangerously different from the other guardians, but the voice mocks his hesitation toward such a grand opportunity. Arthur almost agrees immediately, since every gift from the system has helped him survive the journey so far. But before he can touch the gate, the guardians of war and knowledge scream for him to stay away. The shadowy voice simply laughs, dismissing his peers as weaklings who are too afraid of true potential. With the others silenced, the voice reminds Arthur that he still plans to conquer the great unknown labyrinth. A haunting illusion manifests, showing Lady Seraphina collapsed and broken right beside the young hero. Erisa appears next, proving that with his current strength, Arthur won't be able to protect anyone he loves. Every dark vision is designed to force Arthur into inheriting this forbidden power to save his friends. As the message flickers again, Arthur reaches out to confirm, while the voice gloats about their coming conquest. But at the very last second, and yeah, I know what you're thinking, who saw this coming. The Guardian of Knowledge himself steps in to stop Arthur from making a mistake. The entity behind the gate loses its patience and shatters the seal, lashing out to strike Arthur down. Luckily, our hero is shoved aside by the very same man who has guided him since the beginning. Arthur can only watch in horror as the Guardian of Knowledge is dragged into the darkness in his place. All he managed to say was light for the final successor, until finally. He was dragged into the dark gate, which slammed shut only a few seconds later. Arthur bolts upright in his bed, heart racing, realizing the whole ordeal was just a nightmare. He tries to make sense of the dark figure and the man who sacrificed everything for him. But his mind feels heavy, and the memories of the dream are already starting to fade away. The next morning, at the Argent Order headquarters, Seraphina welcomes Arthur to his first official meeting. Before they start, she asks the boy to describe what he thinks a knightly order actually represents. Given his brutal past, The hero cynically replies that it's just a business that exploits poor sellswords. The girls are clearly embarrassed by his answer, so Seraphina explains their actual role in managing labyrinths. Orders are ranked from S to F tier, and their duties are assigned based on that prestige. Most of their gold comes from the labyrinths and taxes from the St. George's Academy district. Curious about the scale of their work, the hero asks for an annual budget estimate. An advisor pulls up an enchanted scroll, showing Arthur the staggering numbers required for their operations. To his absolute shock, the total amount needed for their mission is nearly 900 billion gold pieces. Arthur's soul practically leaves his body, forcing Seraphina to quickly explain it's only a projected forecast. Regardless, they must face reality. To keep their A rank status, they need 2 elite knights registered. With the recent tragedy, they must find a new champion to join Seraphina. Trust me, this gets wild. Finding Tier 1 knights is tough, since so few are actually available. All right, you and I are about to see our hero get thrown into the deep end by these girls. The best path is for Arthur to take the rank-up trial, but he needs a massive record of achievements first. Seraphina asks Madame 𝒓𝒂𝒔𝒉 to bring the mission files. Soon, a mountain of paperwork towers over Arthur. Seraphina just smiles and tells him he has exactly 3 months to finish everything. Staring at that massive stack of work, Arthur feels defeated. He looks for help, but the girls turn away, making him realize Seraphina is a terrifying boss who rules with an iron fist. Later, at a Tier 1 dungeon known as the Shadow Reach, Arthur heard Seraphina hired help, so he arrives early. But suddenly, Cedric appears, saying it has been quite a while. Turns out Cedric is the helper. He mentions he recently joined the Void Order as an elite intern knight. He refuses to fall behind, making Arthur worry about how intense this rivalry is going to get. Arthur finds it reassuring. Since nobody is watching today, he tells his partner there is no need to worry about failing. Cedric looks annoyed. Still, the blonde knight stays calm, warning Arthur not to hesitate like last time if he truly wants that higher rank. Now Arthur knows he can trust him. Without another word, the 2 knights charge into the heart of the cursed dungeon. Pay attention now. They finally reach the final floor to face the terrifying dungeon lord. In a flash, they close the distance, preparing a devastating combo strike to end this battle once and for all. After the blast, Cedric asks if they won. But the nightmare wasn't over, the monster was still standing perfectly still. Worse than that, the creature was laughing at them. Arthur realizes they are in trouble, but he is the first to be smashed by the monster's brutal counterattack. The blow hits Cedric too, sending them both crashing down. Cedric never expected the Count to craft weapons from solidified blood. Arthur realizes their previous attack was just a trap to lure them in for a single, deadly strike. The vampire begins to feast on the blood of both knights. Using dark magic, he crafts the liquid into a lethal spear. This is a Tier 7 monster of the vampire lord species named 𝑰𝒏𝒉𝒆𝒅. Cedric notices the monster is powering up its spear by drinking their own life force. Arthur adds that the more they bleed, the stronger this devil becomes. Arthur decides to strike deep enough to stop the regeneration. Cedric agrees, promising they will slice the beast in 2. Arthur charges from the front, while Cedric sprints to the side for a flank. You and I both saw this coming. The pincer attack looks perfect, but �メ just laughs, already prepared to strike back. Suddenly, Arthur's prediction ability fails. The vampire vanishes into thin air right before his very eyes. The 2 boys can't stop and crash into each other. Cedric is furious, while Arthur apologizes, explaining that �メjust disappeared. Still, Cedric is certain that Arthur is the type of man who should see everything. Arthur tries to think about the skill he was going to use. But he realizes that over-relying on skills is a mistake, since he lacks real, raw combat experience. It is just like Seraphina warned him. He won before using the Sword of the Heavens, but that power was not his own. It was just an automated fight. To reach his goals, he cannot just depend on high-level skills alone. Seeing Arthur's doubt, Cedric reminds him that the man he knows is always full of confidence. No matter the situation, he always finds the absolute best path forward. Hearing this from his friend changes everything. Arthur realizes he just needs to give it his all right now, because that is the only way to survive. Back to the fight. The monster controls the blood again, launching sharp stingers from the earth. The knights barely dodge the spikes, nearly being impaled where they stand. Arthur notices the stingers vanish when they hit the light, making him look toward a nearby window. Luckily, the sun is already shining brightly outside the castle. Seizing the chance, Arthur shouts for his partner to hold the vampire in place for a moment. Cedric hates taking orders, but trust me, this finish is absolutely wild. All right, you and I are about to watch Sir Cedric plant his sword and mock his enemies like they are children before taunting them to come get some. The enemy charges to impale the knight, but Cedric catches the blade barehanded, a sight that sends a thrill through our young hero. Arthur readies his aura blade, putting every ounce of his strength into a desperate throw toward the very top of the mansion. The ceiling shatters, and in that instant, glorious sunlight comes pouring into the dark heart of the manor. Lord 𝒓𝒂𝒔𝒉 is caught right in the center of the beam, forced to face his ultimate weakness, the burning rays of the sun. He disintegrates in an instant, leaving nothing behind on the cold stone floor but a pile of smoldering black ashes. Cedric sighs in relief that they survived, while Arthur thanks their lucky stars. Still, the hero knows he could never have won this fight alone. He fears his dream of reaching the top rank is slipping away, but suddenly, a system message appears as if in agreement. It is a message from the Sage of Martial Arts. When she finally reveals herself, Arthur is caught completely off guard. The sage wastes no time, coldly stating that Arthur is far too inexperienced and relies way too much on his raw power. Though he wants to defend his pride, the young hero eventually bows his head and accepts the harsh, bitter truth. Regardless, the sage declares that the situation is far too dire for her to remain a mere observer from the shadows. She asks if he remembers that recent nightmare, the one with the great gate sealed tight by those massive, glowing iron chains. Time is running out for their world, and Arthur must find a way to become stronger before the end. Master Alara opens a shimmering portal, offering to train the boy herself. She makes it clear that the choice is his, and there is no need for any more questions. Arthur accepts the challenge, which brings a glimmer of pride to Alara's eyes. But before they depart, our hero warns Cedric that he is heading into a realm of pure danger that might be too much for him. He asks Cedric to stay behind, but the knight is offended, demanding that Arthur stop underestimating his skill and his resolve. Understanding that Arthur is off to gain power, the knight refuses to be left in the dust and demands to join him. The sage agrees, leading both warriors into a new challenge that they must now conquer as a team or die. Tumbling through the portal, the two boys crash onto the ground, struggling to find their bearings in this strange land. Arthur realizes this is the training ground, while Cedric points toward the horizon at a massive, towering tree that defies all logic. A message confirms they are in the white world, where an entire year equals just one single day on Earth. But even an eternity won't be enough. Sir Cedric wonders where the master is, and trust me, you're going to want to see this entrance as she materializes out of thin air surrounded by dark energy. At that exact moment, the hero formally introduces Sir Cedric to their new, terrifying master. Cedric admits he expected some bearded old man or a muscle-bound giant to be the one teaching them. To shatter that illusion, Master Alara steps forward until she is standing just inches away from the knight's face. Using a secret technique, she delivers a 1-inch punch straight to his chest, knocking him out and seemingly ending his life on the spot. Arthur is furious, but as he tries to manifest his aura blade, a system warning flashes saying all special abilities are forbidden in this realm. No matter how many times he tries, the same cold message keeps appearing before him. The girl calls them both fools, explaining that this training is specifically designed to strip away their reliance on cheap tricks. While this was Arthur's goal, He is caught off guard when the martial artist suddenly lunges at him, attacking with nothing more than a single, lethal finger. Moments later, Cedric gasps awake, wondering what in the world happened. Now look at this. Cedric looks over and sees Arthur lying dead. Talk about a brutal first day. The sage warns that if he wants to survive, he must attack with everything he has, possessing a literal intent to die in the process of his strike. Cedric finds the madness of it all quite amusing. Since death is guaranteed anyway, he decides he might as well go down swinging like a true knight. But it is not that simple, as the sage counters effortlessly and sends the boy flying across the hall. When Arthur finally regains consciousness, Alara just signals for him to get up and try his luck one more time. This leads to a brutal cycle of endless defeats for our two adventurers at the hands of their merciless master. In minutes, they have already died 10 times. It is a pathetic display that has them both starting to doubt their very existence. The girl snaps that crying won't help them. However, feeling a shred of pity, she decides to raise the stakes. From now on, anyone who manages to withstand a single hit will earn the right to learn a secret technique. This piques their curiosity, and the boys quickly shed their heavy, restrictive gear until they are finally ready to fight for real. So what do you and I take from this? True strength is never given. It is stolen through sheer, unyielding greed. All right, you and I are about to see the most brutal training camp in history, where defeating the Grandmaster is the only way out alive. Despite the mounting nerves, both knights accept the deadly challenge. But soon, our hero's death count hits 45. Before long, Julian falls 300 times, then 800. Eventually, that number reaches nearly 2,000 deaths at the lady's hands. 5 times more, 10 times more, the counter is off the charts. Still, they refuse to quit until the job is done. In the end, the Grandmaster does not teach them a single word. But those thousands of deaths gave them the ultimate experience. Julian realizes there are too many secret arts to steal by himself. Even so, he is determined to master at least half of her swordplay. Suddenly, he lands a strike that breaks her guard. Julian screams to Arthur that this is their one opening. Now watch this carefully. Arthur replicates the legendary 1-inch strike, a move perfected through 1,000 failures. To truly reach her level, they decide to merge their skills into one final, unstoppable assault. Finally, the Lady of Blades drops to her knees. The boys just stand there, completely stunned by their own victory. But excitement kicks in fast when they realize they have actually finished their hellish training. The lady feels a wave of relief. Honestly, she was sick of Julian's pathetic skills for way too long. But seeing the raw power radiating from them now, she has to admit they have become true masters. Without wasting another second, she asks if they are ready to return home. They agree, but demand one fair duel first. She pauses, then bursts into a fit of wild, hearty laughter. She beckons them forward for one last clash. Back in the real world, night has fallen over the cursed dungeon. Julian just groans, feeling the mental exhaustion of 1,000 years hit him at once. Regardless, from a dark puddle of blood on the stone floor, something sinister begins to rise. Arthur stares at the shifting mass, wondering what it is, but the answer comes as it starts to float. From the swirling orbs of gore, the vampire lord, 𝒏𝒕𝒆𝒅, manifests once more. The boys are shocked he is still breathing, but Arthur just smirks. To him, this is absolutely perfect. It is the ultimate chance to test the lethal skills they just spent an eternity mastering. Vlad is furious at their arrogance, spitting out curses in a forgotten, ancient tongue. You and I both love a good speed blitz, right? Arthur hits him like a bolt of lightning. A heavy blow slams into the Count's chest, forcing a spray of dark blood from his lungs. Arthur cheers that it is working, while Julian calls him a cheat. Then Julian lunges in, sending the vampire flying. Julian is stunned. He is actually overpowering a lord without using a single magic spell. In response, the vampire reaches a level of rage we have not seen yet. He suddenly plunges his hand into his own chest, rips out his heart and crushes it, turning his skin blood red. And just like that, the Vampire King awakens as a high radiant tier monster. Vlad revels in his new power, but it is short-lived. The two knights pierce through him with a combined strike. That single, devastating blow is enough to end him, triggering the system's victory message across their vision. Finally, standing outside the dark dungeon walls, Arthur sighs about how exhausting the day was. Makes sense, they just lived through years of training in one evening. But they are one step closer to their goal. Julian nods, knowing they are finally becoming legends. Near the coast, Julian mentions he has some news before they go their separate ways. The great tournament happens every 4 years, and Julian reveals he will be competing this time around. He tells Arthur it would be a massive waste if he did not show up to fight. He promises to wait for him. Next time, they meet as rivals, a thought that leaves Arthur in deep reflection. Later, Arthur returns to the manor, where Alice tells him that Lady Sarah is waiting for him. As Arthur changes his gear, his friend apologizes for dropping by so late in the evening. He offers to escort her home, after a quick wash to get the dungeon grime off. Trust me, you and I see why those girls are staring. Arthur is definitely not the same scrawny kid anymore, and it shows. Regardless, our hero washes off the blood, reflecting as he stares into the glass. Before his brutal training, the boy struggled immensely against the cruel Lord Valerius. But now, he crushed him in an instant. What is wild is that he didn't even use magic, just his own raw physical strength. Our hero starts thinking bigger now. He might finally have what it takes to reach the legendary rank of Grandmaster. And you and I both know, he is not forgetting what his comrades said before parting. Alistair swears to make them proud. As weeks pass, his climb is remarkable, clearing one dangerous rift after another in record time. Word of his feats travels fast, eventually reaching the high council chambers of the powerful House Sterling and the Duke himself. Duke Sterling, the head of the house, still does not believe Alistair Thorne can be trusted. However, an advisor argues that a rift must be governed by a top-tier guild. The Duke finally agrees, praising the man's logic. A magic scroll is opened on the table, showing our hero standing alongside the Duke and 4 other elite knights. For years, the greatest guilds across the continent have fought fiercely in these massive, large-scale combat operations. This time, Sterling wants Alistair Thorne to compete. The advisor is shocked, since that slot was reserved for the Duke's own son. It turns out the Lancer in question actually deserted his post to join the Western Empire. Now watch this. The real plan is to kill Alistair during the chaos and seize the school's rift for themselves. The advisor says he will begin the dark preparations, and the Duke gives the man his cold blessing. That man is Commander Silas, leader of the Shadow Legion. He looks through Alistair's records. Every single mission is marked with a seal of completion. Because of that, and with the guild coffers already empty, Lady Selene admits she always saw his potential, but never expected him to conquer every challenge in such a short amount of time. Alistair is now a silver rank adventurer, and even more impressive than that. The hype is insane. Out of more than 100 elite warriors who signed up, it was Alistair who took first place in the Rising Knight event. Our hero says he did not seek the fame, but it is proof his grueling training is finally being recognized by everyone. Suddenly, at 10:35, the messenger bells ring, when Selene asks who is calling at this hour. She is stunned to hear it is Silas from the Shadow Legion. He enters as a special guest to speak with them both. He does not waste any time, offering a chest overflowing with gold to win Selene over to his new proposal. Silas calls it a small token of appreciation for Alistair's incredible service to the realm. The girl feels the reward is far too high, and Silas compliments her remarkably sharp intuition. He reveals the true purpose of his visit. They look at a mystical scroll and freeze. It is a summons for the Great War. Realizing the danger, Selene starts to panic, fearing Alistair does not stand a single chance against those monsters. But Silas is persuasive, claiming he would not have come personally if Alistair was not ready for the challenge. This is the chance to build a true legacy. a national tournament our hero mentioned wanting to join a while back. Seeing the hero weighing his options, 𝒉 praises him for giving the offer some very serious thought. 40 years ago, a massive continental rift appeared. It was so devastating that Alistair even studied it in his history classes. Pay attention here, because 𝒉 is about to tell us the real story behind that event. After a brutal battle with the whole world working together, the island became a controlled zone later named Avalon. But one massive issue remained that sparked our hero's curiosity. Naturally, there was a dilemma about which specific kingdom would gain control over the operations in Avalon. Any nation ruling this massive rift would gain power and wealth, unlike anything the world has ever seen. Almost every nation that took part in the war demanded their share, nearly triggering another massive war. But then, a massive orb of black magic appeared in the parliament. While the politicians stared in shock, it just kept growing. That day, a quest was issued by the system to decide once, and for all who would manage Avalon. The rule was simple: each kingdom must send 5 champions. Hearing this, Alistair demands to know who is behind this madness. But that remains a mystery. Back then, everyone just decided to use the situation to their own advantage. The rules of this mission never change. Each fighter gets a numbered medallion, and at some point, they are all randomly teleported to Avalon. Warriors must then battle to steal medallions from each other, while racing toward the center of the island. Alistair asks what is at the center, and 𝒉 explains there are 8 doors leading to the great arena. Only the 8 warriors with the most medallions can pass through to the final main event. So it is a race, but move too fast and someone with more badges might just steal your spot. Wild, right? All right, you and I are about to see a tactical showdown, where one wrong move means instant elimination. 8 champions will clash, until only one remains to claim the rights to the Great Abyss. Our hero wonders why the elites aren't sent, but Lady Seraphina explains the 25-year age limit. Strong knights that young are rare, and great houses won't risk their best talents getting maimed. Reaching the finals grants 8-year status, but the winner, they walk away with a legendary 𝒔𝒄𝒅 license. Lady Seraphina instantly recalls the ancient creed of the Silver Wings. Never letting a golden chance slip by, both the lady and our hero accept the grand challenge. Soon, in the heart of 𝒂𝒂𝒔𝒉, thousands gather for the quadrennial tournament of champions. To kick things off, a charismatic host named Lord Lucian takes center stage. He was actually a commoner before his linguistic magic skill landed him this prestigious gig. Cutting to the chase, the young contestants are already waiting within their own kingdom borders. However, the host warns everyone to handle their business now before things get wild. Lord Lucian reveals that the emblems they hold will soon forcibly teleport them to the island. So, it is vital that nobody arrives in a state that would shame their noble house. Now, to kick things off, the festival will begin with an exhibition match featuring a legendary champion. It is the reigning champion and pride of the desert sands, the legendary Sir Alistair. He emerges apologizing for the wait, reminding the crowd of the overwhelming power he showed last time. He possesses a rare bloodline trait that allows him to transform his body into a dragon. Trust me, seeing that half-beast dragon form in person is something you and I would never forget. Lord Lucian asks if Sir Alistair has any words for the world or the new adventurers. But the warrior stays silent, letting a thick, awkward tension fill the entire arena. Suddenly he moves, lunging forward and grabbing the scrying eye with his massive claws. Staring into the lens, he declares he won't stop until he's the world's #1 knight. He reveals his legendary opponent was personally invited, and there's no need for teleportation magic, because he's actually already floating directly above them all. Dropping from a high-altitude sky beast, the world's greatest hero descends from the clouds without a parachute, landing in the arena perfectly unharmed. Meet Sir Julian, representative of the mighty Western Empire. Watching through the monosphere, Arthur looks like a total fanboy seeing his idol in person. The sister is baffled by his obsession, But Arthur's fascination with this knight is actually quite deep. Lady Seraphina asks what on earth is wrong with the boy's behavior. The sister explains he's been studying foreign combat styles and collecting all of Julian's enchanted talismans. Arthur has officially become a superfan, and now getting to watch this fight is a dream come true for us. 𝒊𝒕𝒅 roars that he's waited years for this, charging forward to end it before the bell. The impact shakes the stadium, but it's obvious the blow didn't even scratch the Western hero. With a smirk, Julian asks if the Desert Knight can handle the sheer might of the Empire. Despite the failure, 𝒊𝒕𝒅 doesn't flinch, merely stepping back to reset his stance. If size is all Julian has, 𝒊𝒕𝒅 decides to reveal his true, monstrous dragon form. Claws and a tail erupt as the warrior prepares to strike with his full draconic power. But Julian remains bored, simply raising his arms to soak in the cheers of the citizens. Patriotic magic armor forms around him as he strikes a hero's pose, fueling 𝒊𝒕𝒅's rage. Without a moment's hesitation, Julian lunges with explosive speed, nearly vanishing before appearing at 𝒊𝒕𝒅's side, promising the crowd a battle for the ages. Seeing the chaos, Lord Lucian begins to panic behind the scenes. He finally gathers himself and screams to officially start this legendary exhibition duel. Julian strikes from behind with heavy force, but 𝒊𝒕𝒅 manages a desperate, last-second block. 𝒊𝒕𝒅 boasts about the desert sand's power, and trust me, you and I are just getting started. All right, you and I are about to watch the ultimate showdown between two legendary kings. Like a true dragon, the champion breathes a torrent of fire. Sir James admits he likes dreamers, but in response, he throws a rapid flurry of punches, parting the flames, blowing his foe back with pure wind pressure. James is a hero, gaining strength from every loyal supporter. Extinguishing dragon fire with just air pressure from a fist, that is absolutely insane. The commentator, Lucas, screams with excitement. It is the tournament champion versus the strongest man alive. Looking at his class, Alaric notes how confident James is in his own power. James simply laughs, stating that since Avalon is the world's greatest kingdom, the man carrying its peoples must be the most powerful warrior alive. Alaric smiles, vowing to defeat this knight at his absolute peak to prove his worth. The Dragon Knight suggests a pure contest of raw strength. James agrees instantly. Their fighting spirit literally overflows. Alaric prepares his final move, one worthy of a rival as great as the hero. Massive wings sprout from the Dragon Knight's back as he takes flight above the grand arena. Now pay attention here. Alaric asks if the hero truly has the courage to take this massive attack head-on. Fueled by battle lust, Alaric dives down like a meteor, completely engulfed in roaring flames. Within seconds, he slams into the hero's guard, who braces himself with every ounce of strength. A massive shockwave erupts from the impact, sending the announcer flying through the air. Dust and debris rain down on the noble spectators. James finally admits that the air pressure was truly incredible. Still, the fact remains. This knight blocked an attack that should be impossible for any human. Smiling, James steps forward, thanks him for the fun, and punches the Dragon Knight right in the jaw. The blow sends Alaric crashing into the arena wall, nearly crushing Lucas in the process. With Alaric thrown out of the ring, the crown officially goes to the hero, Sir James Blood. Reverting to human form, Alaric realizes that James gets stronger the more he fights in battle. In a noble gesture, the champion offers to help the wounded announcer back up. Regardless, the main event begins soon. James' son, Percival, is competing, so stay tuned for that. Far away, a boy laughs at his screen, feeling embarrassed by his father's loud theatrics. That is young Percival. Before his match, a small girl wishes him luck, which the boy truly appreciates. Percival vows to fight in a way that honors his father's legendary title as a hero. Meanwhile, our hero Arthur pins his sigil to his chest and prepares to head out. Alara and Isabella offer him support and promise a feast upon his return. Seraphina simply waves him off with a gesture of luck, which our hero returns. Soon after, in southern 𝒖𝒏𝒂𝒔𝒉, Arthur materializes on the peak of a jagged mountain. You and I are looking at 𝒖𝒏𝒂𝒔𝒉, a place where massive beasts rule the sky. Arthur stares at the giant lizards, realizing how insane these dungeons truly are. He closes his eyes, sensing 50 people nearby. Even though they have been hiding their presence quite well. Arthur tells these shadows they certainly do not look like referees. 5 assassins immediately jump out to kill him. Back at the arena, Sir James asks the host if the mission is ready. Lucas announces that the conquest of 𝒖𝒏𝒂𝒔𝒉, featuring over 1,000 brave warriors, has officially begun. Back to our hero. One assassin laughs, claiming it was just bad luck they met. Since the man is practically oozing bloodlust, Arthur just gives him a cold laugh. The hooded killer tells him not to worry. The hunt has just started as he lunges forward. Bad move. Arthur reacts instantly, burying his fist deep into the assassin's terrified face. The killer is smashed into the dirt, defeated instantly. This victory grants our hero his first crest. Seeing this, the other assassins begin chanting spells. Lethal magic projectiles fly toward Arthur. The assassins think there is no way he can dodge this barrage. But trust me, you and I are about to see why this hero is on another level. All right, you and I are about to watch Sir Alistair crush the competition with a single, earth-shaking punch. He then mocked the final knight, asking where that legendary barrier had actually vanished to. High above, the scrying orbs captured every moment. The hero's brilliant tactical display was being broadcast to the entire kingdom, even reaching the reigning champion of the last tournament, who was stunned by the rumors of this magicless spellblade. Duke James noted that this was the same youth who single-handedly prevented the labyrinth collapse. Lord Ambrose found him fascinating. Back on the field, Alistair wondered if these assassins served the same master who kept attacking him. Since he was exactly right, the defeated warrior was left absolutely speechless. Earlier, the Mercenary Guild had accepted a contract from the Blackwood Syndicate. Their experts predicted that despite his title, the young knight was actually a master of brutal close-quarters combat. Believing he was merely a mid-tier fighter, the killers were overconfident. This forced their master to scream that this was no game. Regardless, the bounty for Alistair's head was massive enough to tempt any blade for hire. This was a life-or-death gamble. With enough gold for 5 men to retire, failure was simply not an option. Behind the scenes, a secret teleportation ritual ensured they would arrive together and secure a swift, bloody victory for their master. Back at the fight, the assassins stammered, complaining that they were never warned about his true strength. Now pay attention, because Alistair's response to these fools is about to be legendary. Alistair explained he never lied about his rank. He simply gave his absolute best in every single confrontation. It turns out his enemies simply failed to grasp the sheer scale of his hidden potential. From the shadows, another challenger watched the devastation left behind by the hero's raw power. Clutching a sigil, he remarked that the southern marches were finally becoming interesting. He turned to his companion and asked if they agreed. Strangely, this companion was no human, but a massive, terrifying, monstrous feline. After losing his crest, a broken knight begged to be freed from the beast's jaws. But with no order from the master, the predator simply followed its natural instincts. The master of beasts prepared for his next hunt. This was the High Kingdom's own summoner, Lord Henry. Along with that tiger, he commanded a small army of monsters. Meanwhile, in a merchant's guild in Valoria, a noble official asked nervously if it was truly wise to let that woman enter the fray. After all, she was the one who triggered a catastrophic labyrinth breach. This made her a wanted outlaw across every kingdom, known only as the Viper, Clarissa. Elsewhere, Sir Cedric crushed his foes, while the noble Noah refused to be outdone. Alistair moved like a ghost through the brush until he passed a hidden archer. Knocking an arrow, the sniper thought the southern marches were easy pickings. You saw that coming, didn't you? But watch how Alistair handles this sneaky coward. The archer released his shot, aiming to steal another victory crest. Just before it hit him, the hero sensed the steel and caught it midair, leaving the archer completely paralyzed with fear. With a fluid motion, Alistair hurled the projectile back with even more lethal force, striking the enemy and instantly defeating him. As the hero's feats were broadcast, his allies back home roared with excitement at his performance. Look at the rankings now. The hero surged past his main rival, Noah. Born in a humble parish, Noah was the adopted ward of the powerful Duke James. Lord Lucas asked if this rise was expected. The Duke replied that he had been watching Alistair, so he wasn't shocked. Lucas wondered if Alistair could actually win the whole thing. The Duke remained uncertain for now. He added that a true champion never fails his people's expectations. Now, we only need to see which warrior can shoulder that burden and claim the throne. The herald quickly announced the start of the competition's second phase. True greatness requires more than just dueling skills. One must also have the resolve to protect people from labyrinth threats. Danger zones have appeared across the field, and ravenous monsters are now hunting the competitors. Lucas called this a golden chance. Those who conquer these deadly areas will earn rewards that scale, with the difficulty of the beasts defeated. So what do you and I think? Will Alistair turn the tides and become the true hero? All right, you and I are about to dive into the absolute chaos of this tournament's deadly second half. Suddenly, Arthur's magical scroll flashes. It's the decree for the challenge zone: slay the beasts, take their badges, and survive the trials. In that instant, our knight already has enough badges to pass the gates, but he knows this second round will flip the entire script. He needs to clear one more zone to lock in his rank, and the nearest battlefield is just over the ridge. Down in the southwest, the young Lady Aloin is locked in a brutal struggle against a two-headed beast called Orthrus. She's exhausted and in no state to face a high-tier demon. One of those gnashing heads lunges with terrifying speed. Aloin sidesteps, whipping her war fan into a deadly spiral. She leaps, spinning through the air to deliver a heavy, crushing blow. But Orthrus counters. A savage strike sends the pink-haired mage flying, tumbling helplessly across the dirt and stone. Her body is broken, but her spirit refuses to yield. She forces herself up. Losing isn't an option for her today. She's sacrificed everything to reach this stage, carrying the weight of being the kingdom's one and only true heroine. Aloin stands tall despite the blood, declaring her name to the world. But watching from the shadows, a hooded rogue mocks her noble struggle. Things go from bad to worse. This scavenger is ready to steal her kill. Meanwhile, Arthur is fast approaching the same zone. A three-way clash is inevitable now, but pay attention here, because it all traces back to when the Great Towers first rose. 3 years ago, these monoliths appeared from nowhere, plunging the entire world into absolute dark chaos. Aloin felt completely helpless back then. Her small island nation had almost no knights or mages to defend it. The king's guard charged in, but their steel blades shattered against the monsters. The fate of the front line was a total bloodbath. Soldiers scrambled to evacuate the peasants. Amidst the screaming crowds and falling ruins, a young Aloin watched her world burn. Soon, the survivors spotted a fleet of ships, their only chance to escape by sea. Panic is a killer, though. Aloin's companion grabbed her arm, screaming for her to run before the docks were overrun. But Aloin just stood there thinking, where can you possibly hide when the entire island is under siege? Her friend knew they were powerless against such monsters, yet the girl's mind was racing with a desperate plan. In that frantic moment, a child fleeing with her parents accidentally dropped her favorite toy onto the cobblestones. That doll meant everything to her. The child bolted back into danger, leaving her parents and Aloin in a state of pure terror. A gargantuan beast loomed right over her. Before the child could reach her treasure, the monster's heavy foot crushed it to splinters. You and I both know she couldn't just watch. Holding a similar doll, Aloin sprinted forward to handle this her way. Ever since she was small, she dreamed of becoming like the legendary brave heroines from the old fairy tales. 𝒏𝒊𝒏 idolized that strength and wanted to embody it. Without a second thought, she rushed to the crying child and handed over her own doll as a replacement. She called it a gift, bringing a small spark of joy to the girl, just as she had desperately hoped. But that selfless choice meant she was now standing directly in the path of the towering beast. She lunged forward with everything she had. If she was ever going to be the hero she admired, this was her moment to prove it. Back in the present, 𝒏𝒊𝒏 leaps at 𝒏𝒓𝒄𝒄, her fan erupting with a blast of vibrant, swirling magical energy. The beast stumbles, dazed by the impact. 3 years of hardship have finally awakened her true hidden class as a battle dancer. Yet her kingdom of Avalonia remains under siege, as the neighboring empires selfishly refuse to send any reinforcements. If she claims victory today, she can finally break through the silence and force the entire world to hear her plea. She hopes that somewhere out there, a legendary hero might answer her call. But for now, the monster charges at full speed. Even if she feels weak for needing help, 𝒏𝒊𝒏 vows that she will survive this encounter on her own terms. She takes flight again, spinning with even greater fury and determination. This time, her steel fan bites deep into the creature's neck. A system window flashes, 100 badges awarded for slaying the twin-headed 𝒏𝒂𝒄𝒄. She actually did it. With those badges in hand, her spot in the tournament qualifiers should be completely guaranteed. But suddenly, a heavy shadow falls over her. A brutal punch from behind slams her face first into the unforgiving earth. Grinning like a demon, a man emerges, claiming he's been waiting for this exact moment. This is Gideon, a brutal boxer class. He's been lurking in the brush, waiting for 𝒏𝒊𝒏 to finish the dirty work. Gideon was ranked 4th, but after taking down our lead, he stands on her broken body to humiliate her further. He even has the nerve to mock her, calling it a lucky day to crush such a pretty mage. And as we leave her there, 𝒏𝒊𝒏 asks, had he really been watching her suffer all this time? All right, you and I are about to see if patience really is a virtue, or just a fancy word for cowardice. Taking offense, the brawler kicks the knight, shouting that honor has no place in a real scrap. To him, crushing others is the only way to the top. Adventurers do whatever it takes to survive. Tiana claims she never respected his kind, but Silas just laughs in her face. After all, he thinks that sort of noble idealism is strictly for children. Before he can walk away, a magic bolt clips the brawler's head, enraging him. It was a desperate shot from Tiana, using her final scrap of mana to try and win back her crests. Silas turns back, absolutely livid now, especially since he actually tried to be civilized for once. Since she chose to fight, he clenches his fist, promising to send her to an early grave. It's clear this monster actually enjoys hurting those weaker than him. He sneers that he'll start by ruining her pretty face. A massive explosion erupts as his punch connects with the air. But wait, watch this. At the last second, Julian catches the blow with his bare hands. Since there are no rules, our hero asks if he can join the fun too. The brawler demands to know who this meddling brat is. Julian's answer is a heavy strike right to the chest. It sends Silas flying into a massive oak, hitting so hard the trunk snaps under the sheer force. Silas lies in the dirt, coughing and gasping, unable to comprehend what just hit him. He screams, demanding to know how a mere boy could cause such damage. His mithril gauntlets are supposed to crush solid iron. Julian just scoffs, suggesting that even the best gear can't fix a total lack of skill. High above, the scrying orbs fixate on Julian. Watching this impossible feat, Lord Alistair is so stunned he accidentally spills his wine right over his expensive robes. Sir James explains that this disgraced brawler was a menace until the kingdom revoked his knighthood. He might be trash, but his combat level is elite, and his magically enhanced punches hit like heavy ballista bolts. Lucas asks if Julian really managed to block that force so easily. The truth is, he didn't stop it. He simply redirected it. He caught the momentum with his left hand and channeled that raw power through his body and out his right. Lord Alistair recognizes this as a legendary technique from the Far East, one only a true master could pull off. Silas mocks the hero, asking if helping foreigners makes him feel like a noble knight. Julian replies that he just hates thieves who steal from the hardworking. Silas counters, claiming he just took the most efficient path to victory. Hoping to avoid more eyes, Silas pulls a mysterious glowing cube from his pocket. He declares they should settle this in a proper ring. Tossing a cube to the ground, he summons a terrifying pocket dimension known as the Battle Box. It is a cursed arena where neither fighter can leave until one of them is completely broken. You and I can feel the tension rising as Silas rips off his shirt, ready for blood. Julian just sheds his jacket, meeting that confidence with his own steel gaze. This gives the brawler pause. He realizes Julian's physique is that of a battle-hardened veteran. Standing face to face in the center, the sound of a heavy iron gong echoes. Silas charges, aiming for a quick knockout. But unexpectedly, his jab is parried, and even his dirty low blows fail to find their mark. Julian's calm, confident smile is enough to drive the desperate brawler into a frenzy. Silas goes all out with a wild flurry, but it is Julian who is truly controlling the fight. By grabbing Silas's fist midair, Julian redirects the impact right back into his chest. Silas is terrified, wondering how such a monster could still be unknown. Julian tells him to brace himself, delivering a punishing gut shot as payment for touching a lady. The impact is so brutal it knocks Silas unconscious immediately. He slams violently into the magical ropes of his own ring before collapsing flat on the floor. With the brawler out cold, the arena vanishes. Julian collects the stolen crests along with Silas's own, reaching 10th in total. Tiana stays silent, too intimidated to speak. But she didn't need to say a word, as Julian handed her crests back without hesitation. With a genuine smile, the hero praises her for not giving up, even when things looked their darkest. Still unable to meet his gaze, Tiana softly thanks him for saving her life. She forces herself to look up, wondering if a man this strong could truly help her. Julian isn't even listening, though, as he spots one last crest lying in the dirt nearby. And that's how we wrap it up. True heroes always protect the weak, just like Julian pinning that crest back on her. All right, stick with me because Sir Alistair just left Lady Alara speechless, promising a showdown at the Grand Tourney before walking away and leaving her completely embarrassed. Switching scenes, Alistair was fighting alongside Sir Cedric in the middle of total chaos. They are currently locked in battle with the continent's most dangerous outlaw, the infamous Lady Morgana. Honestly, Cedric feels a deep sense of shame. Sharing the same noble house as a criminal like her is a stain on his honor. Only moments ago, the young knight was dueling the adopted ward of Lord Stirling. And the battle was intense. Alistair was stunned by Cedric's prowess, having heard that Sir Roland was the only threat from the Eastern Isles. The knight replied that he understood the warnings, but suggested they should have investigated further. As a hero's true heir, Cedric realizes that Alistair is truly impressive. And he wondered if Alistair was jealous of facing such a legendary foe while hunting insignias. Regardless, with Alistair carrying 11 insignias, this was a perfect chance for the knight to claim a massive prize. Suddenly, Lord Stirling's ward asks if the young knight intends to flee. But Cedric snaps back that he's here to teach him a lesson. That's his creed. In House Valerius, no knight ever turns his back on a fight. Instead of being offended, Alistair finds his resolve incredible. With nothing left to say, the knight reveals a secret technique mastered just for this duel. It is the Sacred Knight's Resolve, a technique that boosts his power based on every wound he has suffered. Sir Alistair notes that his own royal legacy works in a very similar way. His heroic legacy increases his might, based on every blow he has landed on his enemies in the past. Still, Alistair's arrogant tone irritates the young knight, mostly because it sounds exactly like his own voice. Alistair charges forward to end this now. Their blades are seconds from clashing, but pay attention here, because a heavy, dark aura suddenly forces them both to stop. Out of thin air, a mysterious woman appears between them. Blocking their combined strikes effortlessly, forcing both warriors to retreat and regroup. She mocks the knight from the Eastern Isles, laughing at his pathetic display of power. Looking closer, Cedric realizes this is none other than the legendary outlaw, Lady Morgana. Having stopped 2 elite knights with ease, the herald introduces her as the champion representing the Southern Sultanate. Even the herald just realized she is the wanted criminal Morgana. The lords on the panel are equally shocked. She should be in a dungeon, but looking at the tourney records, the truth finally comes to light. The truth is she blackmailed the Southern Kingdom to force her way into the grand tourney. Since this island follows its own ancient laws, no kingdom's authority can stop her now. Lord Sterling simply laughs, caring little about a competitor's dark history. However, Duke Valerius is far from amused by this dangerous and unexpected intruder, especially since she was responsible for the collapse of a fortress in his lands. Naturally, the Duke wants to execute her immediately. To his shock, Lord Sterling wisely holds him back. With cold logic, the High Lord reminds him that the tournament's sacred rules must be followed, and they have no right to interfere. Besides, Sterling is eager to witness the raw power of this new generation. So even though he's furious, the Duke yields and watches. I know what you're thinking, this is total madness. Back at the manor, Lady Isabel falls from her chair in horror. It turns out the dangerous criminal everyone is talking about is actually her own sister. On the battlefield, Cedric screams that they must stop dueling. Alistair realizes the danger and agrees immediately. Lady Morgana mocks their fear, claiming it's just like the Great Empire to pretend to be allies with the Eastern Isles, while ignoring the dark secrets lurking behind the scenes. Before the clash, Cedric warns Alistair to stay alert. They are facing a dual-class warrior who masters both blade and sorcery. Suddenly, the woman tears a hole in space and vanishes right before their eyes. She instantly reappears behind Alistair, swinging her blade for a lethal finishing strike. At the last second, Cedric shoves Alistair aside, and they both tumble. Alistair tries to apologize, but the knight yells that they have no time for that. In this moment, Cedric misses Sir Roland more than ever. Not even the son of a legendary hero is enough to survive this. Without hesitation, the witch combines a sword strike with a devastating blast of magic, and an explosion of flame engulfs both knights. Then, the outlaw uses her sorcery to summon a ring of fire, cutting off any escape. She slowly approaches the fallen warriors, mocking them and begging them not to be so boring. She is only here to enjoy herself. The woman sheathes her blade into a void and begins channeling spells, telling the young knights to fight with some actual spirit. And that's where we leave it, trust me. You'll want to see how these knights survive her blind spot attacks. Stick with me, we're diving back in, as Conrad charges forward to clear the way. In this moment, all Conrad can see is his training with Master Cedric. While Seraphina rains down dark energy, he feels his master's lethal strikes still burning within his blade. Because of that focus, Conrad doesn't hesitate for a second against her onslaught. Now is finally the time to unleash his own unique style. Those grueling years of training, they were not in vain. He unsheathes a second blade, coating both in crackling lightning magic to reveal his true power. Seraphina is actually amused to see a holy knight attempting to master dual wielding. She lashes out with more fury, testing the boy's limits. Even under this crushing pressure, Conrad somehow keeps his guard up. This distraction gives Alistair the perfect opening to flank her without catching a stray magic blast. Within seconds, the path is clear for the son of the great hero to make his move. Alistair winds up a devastating punch, looking for the finish, but Seraphina just looks bored. She hates this plan. To prove her point, she reaches through a void rift and traps him in a brutal rear choke. Conrad sees the opening and lunges at the criminal from behind while she's occupied. Now watch this. She doesn't even flinch because she can cast spells without using her hands. Still, Conrad isn't backing down. He drops his swords and charges in for a fistfight. He mimics his master's legendary 1-inch punch for the first time. Blood sprays, and he thinks he's won. But Seraphina is laughing. She opened a rift in her own chest, redirecting the strike straight into Alistair. Conrad rushes to apologize, but Alistair just nods. It was a hell of a hit anyway. One thing is certain for both of them now. This girl is on a completely different level. Floating above the wreckage, Seraphina mockingly asks if they really thought they were safe down there. Conrad senses danger and shoves Alistair aside, but Seraphina is 2 steps ahead of him. She triggers a spell called Golden Silence, a terrifying skill that freezes the power of anyone weaker. Conrad hits the floor instantly, leaving Alistair panicking as his partner falls. Without wasting a heartbeat, Seraphina pulls her blade back from the void and unleashes a massive energy wave called Sonic Blade right at the fallen boy. She cackles with glee, wanting to see if these two will betray each other or die together. You and I know she just wants to be entertained. Conrad is finished, and a massive explosion rocks the arena. But when the dust clears, Conrad opens his eyes and realizes he's somehow still breathing. Alistair stepped into the line of fire. He finally views Conrad as a true brother-in-arms. Seraphina is clearly annoyed by their teamwork. She reaches through her rifts again, systematically taking down other adventurers while snatching away every single one of their crests. Conrad can't believe she swiped that many crests in the blink of an eye. Alistair is just as stunned. The massive gap in their power is absolutely terrifying. Opening one last portal, Seraphina promises that their next meeting will be even more fun. But only if they can actually keep up with her, and just like that, she's gone. Badly wounded, Alistair thinks his journey is over, but Conrad immediately moves to bandage his comrade's arm. Alistair screams at him to take the crest and move on alone, but Conrad yells even louder that he's staying to return the favor. This rivalry will just have to wait until the grand finals. Conrad insists they cross the line as a team. With only moments left on the clock, he shoulders Alistair's weight and limps toward the final goal. At the arena's center, Lord Lucan announces that the first wave of adventurers has reached the goal. Now, it's time to meet the warriors who have secured their spots in the grand final. With 157 crests, the infamous Countess Seraphina is currently leading the pack. Surprisingly, Sir Maximilian managed to rack up 149 crests. Then there's Alistair, the hero's son. He was battered in battle, but thanks to Conrad's support, they hold a combined total of 148 crests. The last confirmed finalist is Tinsley, holding 112 crests from a bonus. That leaves only 3 empty spots left for the entire grand tournament. Conrad mentions that someone should probably drop out, and Alistair couldn't agree more. But Tinsley wasn't hoping for fewer rivals. She was praying that one specific person would arrive. And trust me, you and I are about to see a miracle as Master Cedric finally makes his entrance. All right, stick with me. Our hero just dominated the rankings with an incredible 248 points. The rankings are locked, and the grand tournament is finally here. But first, the host unveils a special system designed to track every moment of the main event. As the crowd watches the massive magical screen towering above the stone arena, they see the new combat system. It is legendary tech from Atlantis that analyzes every fighter, calculating a precise score for their raw battle potential. Lord Lucas steps forward to explain the scale, noting that a score of 1,000 points is the benchmark for a truly elite knight. When the scan finishes, the Desert Warrior's power clocks in at over 7,000. A terrifying number for anyone. But the top adventurer, James Blood, hits an even more insane rating of 9,300 points. Seeing this, Amir begins to doubt the machine since he is trailing by nearly 2,000 points. Regardless, Lucas turns the crowd's attention to the scores of the tournament's actual contestants. Sir Cedric, evaluated first, hits 4,500 points. Meanwhile, Keen trails slightly behind with a score of 3,800. Next up, Noah matches that with 4,500 power points, while Max Henry reveals a solid 4,300. The mysterious Julian comes in at 4,900, a score mirrored exactly by his rival, the noble Reed Hellickson. But sitting at the peak is Lady Isabella with a staggering 10,000 points, leaving Noah absolutely speechless. It is a total shock to the knights, especially since she even surpassed James Blood's legendary stats. She basks in the silence of the stunned crowd. Cannon felt her power during their fight, but he had no idea the gap was actually this massive. At this rate, her victory is practically guaranteed, though her true motives remain a mystery to everyone here. Her winning could mean the entire realm falls under her thumb, plunging the kingdoms into a desperate, unavoidable crisis. Now, watch closely. It's finally time for our hero Arthur to step up and be tested. Suddenly, the Atlantean tech glitches out while trying to read his power level. Lord Lucas starts panicking, assuming the entire system has suffered a major malfunction. But our hero suspects this is the work of a hidden successor, masking his true strength. Surprisingly, the crowd takes this as a sign that Arthur's power is so immense the machine simply cannot measure it. Arthur feels a wave of relief, while Sir Cedric looks on in total confusion. From James to Lady Isabella, the elite fighters are buzzing. Max cannot wrap his head around it, knowing the boy's raw physical strength alone should easily hit 4,800 points. Because of that, the British knight knows Arthur is the one man everyone needs to fear in this tournament. With a booming shout, Lucas declares that our hero's real power will only be revealed once the fighting begins. And yeah, I know what you're thinking. The tournament brackets are finally being unveiled right now. Since our hero fights the winner of the first round, he glares at Sir Cedric. If the blonde knight wins, they will clash in the semifinals. Both warriors turn deadly serious. They have made a silent pact. No matter what happens, neither one of them is going to lose. Without any more waiting, the first match kicks off between Lady Isabella and Noah, two of the heavy favorites to win it all. Noah is clearly shaking before stepping into the ring with her, but Cedric steps in to calm him, telling him to give it everything. Even though his confidence is still pretty low, he vows to make this a battle worth watching. As they take their stances, the other knights rise on enchanted floating chairs and vanish into the shadows, leaving only the two rivals in the arena's center. Staring him down, Lady Isabella mockingly asks if his hands still work. Noah just rips off his bandages, saying he's fine now thanks to his friends and the healer's incredible magic. No more talking. The opening match of the grand finals to decide the first victor is officially ready to begin. Desperate to avenge his past humiliation at her hands, Noah lunges forward the second the gong echoes through the stadium arena. Sadly, his opening punch only hits dirt as she slips away effortlessly. Noah follows up with a snap kick from behind, but she does not even flinch. The young warrior tries to channel an even more powerful strike, only for his fist to vanish into a strange magical portal. She smirks, asking if he knows what happens to his limb if she snaps that rift shut. Realizing he's trapped, Noah knows he must act fast. The young knight uses sheer willpower to shatter the portal, which actually thrills Isabella. She is glad he is showing more spirit than their last fight. In response, Noah asks if she has forgotten his true duty as a hero. By proving his strength to the crowd, he draws on their energy, making himself faster and stronger than he has ever been before. Still, just as his strike almost connects, the girl unleashes a massive wave of defensive magic. The shockwave slams the boy and sends debris flying toward the stands. Trust me, you and I just saw a fight that'll haunt that crowd forever. Stick with me. Lady Isolde mocks the hero, asking if he will actually save the crowd. But since this is a 3D magical illusion, Cedric explains that no one is truly in danger, making Lord James look at Isolde with total boredom. This time, Isolde charges, pulling her blade from a rift in time, but the young knight barely manages to block her strike. Even so, bit by bit, the warrior's strength begins to fade away completely. And Isolde's final blow sends Arthur crashing through the arena stone. She sneers that for a self-proclaimed hero, he is absolutely nothing. Without a single explanation, she raises her blade, telling him that understanding isn't a requirement for his defeat. She makes it clear she has no use for a fraud, while summoning dozens of dark energy orbs. Poor Arthur, meanwhile, is still struggling to grasp what she meant by not needing to understand her. But totally fed up, 𝒖𝒏𝒕𝒆𝒅 bids the boy farewell by launching her entire arsenal of attacks at once. As his vitality hits zero, Arthur burns with agony before collapsing face first, leaving 𝒖𝒏𝒕𝒆𝒅 as the tournament's winner. Now pay attention. Silence grips the arena and Lord Conrad is stunned, while Cedric realizes 𝒖𝒏𝒕𝒆𝒅 is planning one final, lethal blow. As she raises her sword, Sir Lucas screams for the castle guard to step in and stop her. But when that deadly slash came down, not a single soul was there in time. No one except Cedric, who arrived just in time to defend Lord James' son. 𝒖𝒏𝒕𝒆𝒅 just smiles and says it is a pleasure to meet him. Already bleeding from taking that massive hit, Cedric firmly declares that this match is finally over. That selfless attitude leaves Arthur confused, since Cedric is actually representing a rival kingdom. Ignoring him, Cedric shouts that there is no reason to keep fighting. 𝒖𝒏𝒕𝒆𝒅 simply attacks anyway, sneering that a spoiled brat needs a lesson in pain. Once again, the deadly blade of the villainess strikes our protagonist. Arthur screams for him to stop, since he isn't even a hero by trade. There is no point in showing such resolve to the crowd. Even so, Cedric remains determined, and with a surge of strength, he sends the criminal flying backward. To him, titles simply do not matter, because a true knight never needs a reason to step in and save a life. Those words deeply move Arthur, as he always thought being a hero was just a job or a class. 𝒖𝒏𝒕𝒆𝒅 admits she was getting bored, but she wouldn't mind cutting down this brave boy instead of his pathetic, weak friend. But our protagonist declines that offer, since the two of them are destined to clash in the grand final. Since 𝒖𝒏𝒕𝒆𝒅 always saves the best for last, she agrees to wait, and so the winner of the first duel is officially crowned. Thankfully, Arthur is rushed to the infirmary while he is still clinging to life. Before leaving, Arthur uses his last bit of strength to call out to Cedric and thank him from his heart. In a twist of terrible luck, Cedric is chosen to participate in the very next match of the tournament. Worried about his friend, Lord Conrad shouts for the hero to get his wounds treated immediately. But Cedric refuses, sharing a smirk with a blonde lady while promising to use his motto to win. In the participant stalls, Sir Maximilian receives a messenger hawk telling him that Cedric needs to open a specific door. He wonders what waits on the other side, joking that maybe there is a princess in distress back there. You and I can see Lord Conrad's confusion while the knight talks to a bird. Meanwhile, the arena resets and the host asks a vital question. Will Sir Cedric actually be able to fight? 𝒂𝒓𝒅, kneeling, claims that though battles are harsh, he will not dishonorably target the hero's injury. Cedric appreciates the gesture, but tells him to fight for real. Although our hero stopped the bleeding with magic, his right arm is now completely useless in this fight. Without any further delay, as the host starts the second match, 𝒂𝒓𝒅 charges forward toward the hero with incredible, blinding speed. Despite his words, the warrior's attack is totally cowardly. The squire yells it's unfair, but Lord Conrad just scoffs at the obvious. Back with our hero, he dodges several throwing knives being hurled at him. He wonders what could have made 𝒂𝒓𝒅 change his mind so drastically. Cedric shouts, reminding him to fight seriously, then slams the ground and sends massive rocks flying all across the grand arena floor. Cleverly, the rocks act as a shield against the knives. Seizing the opening, 𝒂𝒓𝒅 suddenly appears from the flanks. With a devious smirk, he explains that as an assassin, he can summon an infinite amount of hidden weapons. Cedric fires back that he talks way too much and might not be suited for the assassin life. And trust me, you and I just saw a punch so hard it cracked a massive shuriken and forced the killer to retreat. All right, you and I are about to see a commoner humble a high lord. Arthur simply smiles, saying it is a true honor to duel the kingdom's most legendary knights. Lord Cedric ends the praise, declaring that playtime is over. Suddenly, a magic mirror flickers to life before Arthur, revealing a terrifying sight. Back at the village, he left for the tournament. That elite golden knight stood waiting with his ruthless men. When Arthur suddenly freezes in place, the herald wonders what is wrong. The knight reveals his true mission. He was paid to assassinate Arthur. While our hero is stunned, a heavy blow strikes him. With the lives of his family held hostage, Cedric knows Arthur understands exactly what is at stake here. Arthur's allies are baffled by his sudden hesitation, while the cruel crowd simply does not care. Arthur finally realizes House Blackwood is pulling the strings. If it were just his own life, he would not blink. But his loved ones, that is different. While he is distracted, the enemy warrior rushes behind him, ready to deliver a fatal finishing strike. Now pay attention. This is the moment Arthur sees something that restores his fighting spirit. Just as the blade almost hits, the hero spins toward the assassin and drives a massive fist into his gut. The impact makes Cedric cough up blood, slamming his body violently into the dirt below. His life force drops to 0. Just like that, the winner is officially declared as Arthur of the Highlands. Crushed by defeat, Cedric asks why he fought back when his friends are still in chains. But the truth is, Arthur trusts his sister and his companions. He knows he has allies who will never fail him. Among them is Sir Alistair, the former rogue. He marches straight to House Blackwood to confront the Grand Master head-on. The Golden Knight finds this amusing, asking Alistair if he was not supposed to be the Master's loyal lapdog. But insults from a man who spies for both the Western Isles and the Eastern Empire hold no weight. Regardless, the Lancer raises his spear, declaring he has no more time for these games. Facing what looks like a simple mage, he sneers, telling the Shadow Vanguard boy to just hurry up and die. To Alistair, this empty threat sounds like a loser's final cry. The Lancer demands to know who he serves, the West or the North. But Alistair is a son of this kingdom, and he fights for his own home alone. Blackwood laughs, noting that finding a bigger liar than himself almost makes him feel some regret. Putting jokes aside, the Golden Knight charges, promising that Alistair is about to meet his end. You and I both know mages are squishy, right? Well, Alistair summons a magical grid, flinging the knight out of the castle. But as an elite knight, Julian spins in midair, landing on the street with perfect grace. Alistair follows him down, claiming the hall was far too small for them. The knight thinks the mage rumors are a ruse, as someone this clever would never settle for such a common role. He is right. Alistair is actually a spellweaver, a rare class capable of rewriting the very laws of reality. Because he creates miracles from nothing, the common folk simply mistake him for a wizard. Using his own spear illusions, Julian boasts that he can perform those same silly tricks. Confident, Alistair tells him he is about to find out the truth, while the knight scoffs at what he thinks is a bluff. When the illusions clash, a summoned knight blocks one strike, while magic bindings trap the other 2 spears in place. This gives the spectral knight space to shatter them all at once. Julian is furious. He cannot believe a low-ranking noble is managing to outclass a legendary hero like him. Desperate to win, he charges forward once more, slashing through the clones until he stands directly in front of Alistair. To end this duel, the Lancer leaps high into the air, perching atop a street lamp. He floods his weapon with dark magic. With a hateful glare, he screams for Alistair to rot in hell and hurls the spear with all his might, but Alistair just closes his eyes. In the past, the court could not believe that Lord Blackwood had murdered his own beloved wife. Even worse, young Alistair was forced to serve the very monster who took his mother away. But for Alistair, that was exactly what a demon of vengeance was born to do. Even his father knew the truth. By sending Arthur into the tournament, Alistair signaled that his own counterattack against the house had finally begun. And that was precisely what he intended to finish here and now. You and I just witnessed a bow shatter a spear. Trust me, the fallout is going to be legendary. All right, stick with me. This magic arrow just changed everything. It deflects the blade, soaring straight into Sir Cedric. Seconds later, the prideful knight collapses to the grass in total defeat. With the duel settled, Lord Arthur reveals he cast a peace-binding spell on the fallen knight. He won't be drawing blood for a long time. Meanwhile, The noble ladies are completely stunned that such a top-tier adventurer fell so effortlessly. Finally, Lady Beatrice realizes the overwhelming truth behind the legendary power of Sir Alistair. Even in the dirt, Cedric tries to summon his sword, but nothing happens, so he starts a pathetic tantrum. He screams that they are both lying frauds, rambling about how the Silver Order reputation is being dragged through the royal mud right now. Regardless, the crystal displays the final verdict. Lady Alara is the official winner. Down in the arena, Alara leaps onto Baron William to celebrate, shocking both his sister and Lady Seraphina. But Beatrice, she looks absolutely furious. Next up, Sir Maximilian faces the holy knight Sir Percival. Now pay attention here. As a magical book in his pocket begins to glow, Maximilian just laughs, asking for a bit more time. He knows his next opponent well and feels something epic is about to happen. The final duel of the opening bracket begins, featuring the clash between the noble Percival and the mysterious Maximilian. The crowd goes wild for this match, as both knights are famous favorites among the kingdom's ladies. Maximilian opens with a polite bow, claiming it is an honor to face such a spirited opponent. Percival doesn't understand his rival's odd behavior, so he simply vows to give his all, which Maximilian welcomes with a grin. He pulls out that glowing volume from his jacket and reveals it is a legendary grimoire teeming with ancient monsters. As the announcer shouts for the start, Maximilian summons a gargantuan octopus directly onto the arena floor. Maximilian asks the Holy Knight to make this duel fun. Seeing the beast, Percival isn't scared. He's fired up. He narrowly dodges as the monster launches a crushing strike. The opponent's class is a mage, but his true specialty is that grimoire, allowing him to command spiritual beasts with ease. Sir Percival realizes that if he can just destroy that book, the fight is over. But when he lunges for the strike, Maximilian blocks it instantly. Percival never expected such a lightning-fast reaction. With his blade trapped, a massive tentacle slams into the knight, nearly throwing him straight out of the ring. Now, you and I knew this octopus was tough, but Maximilian says it is made of 100% muscle and is far stronger than it looks. Suddenly, the beast shifts into the form of Lady Isabella, leaving the Holy Knight paralyzed with shock. Even Lord Lucian is baffled, shouting to the royal stands that this is unprecedented. The real Isabella even calls out his dirty tricks. Despite the chaos, Maximilian just finds the noble knight's reaction fascinating. He asks if Percival recognizes the creature's ritual, explaining that it morphs into the image of its opponent's greatest inner fear. He wonders if Lady Isabella is Percival's secret trauma. But the knight recovers, charging right at his nightmare. Their blades collide, and Percival realizes the copy is just as strong. He assumes this phantom Isabella can't possibly use her legendary techniques. As he strikes, she vanishes through a rift, proving his assumption was wrong. To the crowd's horror, the creature begins flawlessly mirroring all of the high criminal's deadly abilities. From the high balcony, the kingdom's grand masters analyze the fight. Duke James begins to suspect Maximilian's true origin. Standing near the foreign noble, Marquis Edmund notes that many back home revere the boy. It's because he possesses a dual class, confirming the Duke's worst fears. Edmund believes his class is Traveler, the only adventurer in this world capable of crossing between dimensions at will. Now, his mastery makes sense. James fears a fair duel is impossible here, and though they agree, the whole situation feels dangerously wrong. Technically, a simple mimicry spell shouldn't be able to copy abilities. Taking a breather in the arena, Sir Percival tries to piece together the logic behind this magic. After connecting the dots, a brilliant plan finally flashes in his mind. Without warning, the knight slams his sword down and sheds his heavy armor, making Maximilian think he's quitting. Percival laughs it off, stating he is simply following his knightly code, never retreat and always trust in one's own spirit. Percival takes his stance. Trust me, we are in for a treat. Stick with me. You and I are about to see Cedric take on a monster with nothing but his fists. The The girls' double splits in two to dodge the rush, but Cedric shouts that this beast isn't getting away that easily. He strikes the very edge of the portal, shattering the illusion and landing a blow that leaves the Western Lord speechless. With one massive punch, Cedric levels the giant kraken, sending the commentary booth into a state of total shock. The blonde knight explains that once he mimics the creature, he starts turning transparent from the head down. When he mimicked Lady Alara, only his legs transformed, splitting apart to fake the portal effect for everyone watching. The trick was simple. He just had to hit the hidden core tucked behind those legs. These vibrating close-range strikes are devastating against monsters, with bodies mostly made of water. After shattering Maximilian's plan, Cedric demands his next foe, but the Lord just shuts his book and yields without a hint of shame, leaving the knight baffled. Lady Amara realizes the truth. The man is simply obsessed with witnessing unique fighters in action. Winning or losing doesn't matter to him as long as the duel satisfies his curiosity. With that, the heralds declare Cedric the victor. Confused, the knight tries to ask why the battle ended so abruptly. Maximilian whispers something wild into Cedric's ear that he can hardly believe. Pay attention here, because this changes everything. The Western Lord stands firm. Maximilian bids him farewell, promising to leave that mysterious gift with the boy until their next encounter. Accepting the burden, Cedric mutters that Maximilian is somehow even more annoying than his old friend Barnaby. At last, the first phase wraps up, and the names of the 4 semifinalists flash across the grand arena screen. The question remains, who survives until the end? Sir Lucas tells the crowd they better stay tuned. High above on his floating throne, Cedric glares at the gift and swears he will win the coming battle. Winning is the only way to save Alistair. Finally, after weeks of sweat, we've reached the final stages. The next match is between 2 high knights of the realm, meaning their kingdom is guaranteed a spot in the finals. But only one man can restore honor to the crown. Now, we find out who's worthy of that heavy burden. Facing his closest ally, Alistair looks him in the eye and whispers that the moment is finally here. Cedric agrees, it's time to settle who is truly the strongest. You and I both know these two have been waiting for this since day one, and it's finally starting. Alistair opens by smashing the earth, kicking up a massive dust cloud that completely hides him from view. He uses the chaos to launch a volley of stones, but the Holy Knight slices through them with ease. But those stones were just a decoy. Alistair lunges in, hammering a heavy blow right into Cedric's guard. Alistair can feel the sheer power radiating from his friend, and it's exhilarating. He realizes he can't hold back even a single %. Wasting no time, our hero summons his legendary aura blade for the first time in months. He slams into Cedric's shield once more, but the knight pivots for a right-side counterattack. Suddenly, something goes wrong. The magical prediction system glitches out. Whether it's luck or fate, Alistair takes a direct hit, which was Cedric's plan all along. Now that he's broken through, he's ready to shut down Alistair's remaining skills with the same trick. Flashback to when Alistair was recovering. The Grand Mistress told Cedric she needed him to do something during their next duel. Cedric made it clear right then that he wasn't about to throw the match on purpose. But she only wanted him to probe Alistair's hidden weakness. Cedric scoffed, wondering if that combat genius even had one. She explained that at this very moment, the hero had already been stripped of some of his core strength. Cedric was hooked. The Grand Mistress, having already revealed her true identity, mentioned Alistair had another wise master before her. He was the Sage of Knowledge, but due to a dark fate, Alistair lost those memories and powers almost entirely. Looking back to when they fought the Vampire Lord, Cedric remembers Alistair's strange glitches during that previous fight, realizing his friend was subconsciously reaching for powers that were no longer there. She warned that while Cedric's strength was his advantage, Alistair's instability could throw them both off. Now, back to the fight. Cedric hates using this underhanded strategy, but he still charges ahead with both blades glowing with intense aura. The hero prepares for a frontal clash, But the blonde knight suddenly aims his power at the earth instead. Alistair is confused. What kind of move is this? Like a master mole, Cedric carves out several tunnels to move beneath the surface. Bursting from a tunnel right under Alistair's feet, he launches a surprise upward strike without a moment's warning. Cedric is betting that Alistair's unstable mind won't handle this pressure, and trust me, you and I are about to find out if he can survive. All right, you and I are diving in as the Holy Knight moves through the gaps, ready to deliver a blow that would end it all. Arthur tries to understand why his body will not react. He has no time to think because with Arthur down on the ground, Kenneth uses his aerial advantage to strike from above. Unexpectedly, the blow lands before the hero can summon his aura sword, launching him far with unbelievable force across the battlefield. This is not enough for Kenneth, who keeps advancing. Back in the past, the Brynnet Lord asked if the boy wanted to help Arthur regain his lost strength. Without explaining how he knew, he simply handed over a part of the book, assuring it would work. Now pay attention. Back in the present, with the two very close, the blonde unleashes this beast borrowed from Lord Sila's. After forming a giant bubble, it traps our hero inside the barrier Kenneth created. Kenneth reminds him of a lesson once learned. Sometimes choosing to run is a valid option. He claims that if the young hero does that, paths he could never see before might finally be revealed to him. Although surprised, the protagonist understands it with a hint of sadness. To explain, Kenneth says he wants to fight Arthur at his absolute best. Since he is not well right now, he wants the boy to escape and recover. Arthur, in turn, starts feeling some conflicting emotions. Suddenly, before he even realizes it, he returns to that white room. And just like last time, he is not alone. Since the boy came back, that mysterious sage bound by chains asks if Arthur is ready to inherit his dark legacy. Once fully materialized, the man says it has been a very long time since he last saw the boy. Arthur asks who this person is, as he has no memory of them meeting. Feeling slightly ignored, the sage says he will make Arthur remember and takes him to a different place where recent memories are permanently sealed away. For some reason, the protagonist only now remembers the tragic death of the Sage of Wisdom. Having something like that rush back to his mind so suddenly is so overwhelming it brings him to his knees. Regardless, the Dark Sage says this is the boy's last chance to take the opportunity to inherit his legacy. But the hero wonders, why would he do something like that? Here is the thing you and I need to realize. In this mental domain, resistance is not an option. And just like before, nobody is coming to save him. This is a proposal the protagonist has no choice over. It becomes clear when the system opens a window with only the single option to accept the deal. The sage insists he will not take over the boy, and will even restore the powers of the Sage of Wisdom. Since that does not seem to convince him, the man asks if the boy knows why he was sealed. He answers proudly that it was because he was too powerful, proclaiming himself as the most powerful sage in history. His arguments become more convincing. Still, the protagonist remains stubborn about accepting his dark powers. Out of patience, the sage yells that Arthur has no other choice but to submit. Suddenly, a barrier is placed in front of him by Kenneth on the outside. As the Sage of Shadows charges to force the hero again, he feels something strange in his body, leaving Arthur totally confused. It was a remnant of the soul of the Sage of Wisdom, returning to tell his successor not to falter. In response, the enemy bellows for the weaker one to shut up, throwing that personality far away. Faced with this, Arthur asks the being in front of him a serious question. Since they will now be companions, the sage says he will answer anything the boy wants to know. But what the hero wanted to know was what exactly was he going to inherit from the man. During this time, one thing Arthur learned from the sages was that they could not lie about the abilities they wished to pass on. Instead of answering, the sage tells him to shut up. He calls Arthur an annoying student before wrapping him in black ropes that completely restrain his body. In the case of this desperate student, the man reveals himself as the Sage of Ruin, who desires the destruction of the entire world. His goal is simply to bring emptiness to all living beings and end this rotten human world. Obviously, even in this horrible situation, the protagonist refuses to give in and resists. The sage tells the boy to give up because he will never escape those chains. However, to his complete surprise, the boy broke free because with Lord Silas's blessing ability, Arthur's stats received a considerable boost that the sage never expected. The man can barely believe that something like this is interfering with his own mental realm. The protagonist calls out the sage, saying he was right about the world being ugly since every time he had hope, he was betrayed. Still, Arthur says that sometimes one can find happiness where they least expect it. The sage begins to tremble with rage and charges forward to attack, claiming that one day the boy will fall into the deepest despair just like he did. So what do you and I take from this? To think that way, he must have once trusted something, a thought that freezes the sage in his tracks. All right, you and I are about to watch Arthur shatter an ancient seal. A blinding golden radiance erupted, a final legacy telling the young boy to claim this power for his own, for it was the very last gift he would ever receive from them. Arthur's hair ignites into a solar gold, burning with pure light as the lick of shadows screams in total confusion. But the boy was simply reclaiming his true destiny. Summoning his radiant blade of golden light, our hero lunges forward with a speed that defies every law of nature known to man. Clashing with the darkness, the Sage of Lore realizes he truly wants to save this brave young soul. He knows that through these trials, Arthur might finally become the legendary knight he was always meant to be. With one devastating blow of holy power, the great gates of the sky begin to manifest once more. In a heartbeat, the Lick's grip shatters as he is dragged back into his eternal prison. As the gates slam shut and the world begins to fade back to reality, Arthur catches the falling body of the Sage of Lore, who luckily awakens unharmed, filling Arthur with relief. Back in the arena, Cedric bravely raises his shield against a barrage, an act that leaves the audience in total outrage. Thomas tried to intervene, but the magic in the seats locked everyone down for their own safety. The man behind this cowardly ambush was none other than the legendary elite assassin, Lord Roland. With the tournament ending, the Obsidian Syndicate panicked and spent a kingdom's fortune to hire a professional killer. Now, a Tier 1 killer was mercilessly striking the knight, who could only take the hits to protect his comrade. Now pay attention, because this is where the defense finally starts to fail. While the crowd watches in horror, the assassin declares the end and fires a massive arcane bolt that erupts in a violent explosion in the center of the stadium. But through the smoke and fire, a brilliant golden light emerges, bringing hope back to the entire kingdom. Arthur is back on the field. He quickly thanks Cedric for holding the line while he was gone. The time for hiding is over. Arthur tells his friend he can handle the fight himself now. The Eastern Emirates spent massive fortunes and plotted for months, sending shadow killers throughout the early rounds. But the true elite trump cards were saved for the very end. They sent Lord Roland, a northern warrior whose raw power could dwarf even the legendary Sir James the Flame. Yet the syndicate leaders were furious that, despite all their spending, the target was still standing. In the chaos of the arena, the announcer looked up at the sky, wondering what madness was unfolding. Soon, Lucas shouted to the marshals, identifying himself and demanding they halt the duel and release the magical locks on the seats immediately. But the defenses were managed by the High Citadel, and their commands were being completely ignored. Then, the first blast from the assassin's sky vessel rocked the ground. Roland mocked the knight's endurance, claiming the end was finally at hand for both of them. He unleashed an even more powerful spell, but as the senior knights on the field, Sir James and Baron Alistair threw themselves forward, taking the massive blast head-on in a flash of blinding fire that could be seen from miles away. Lady Alara watched in terror, fearing the absolute worst for her brave friends. You and I should remember that everyone in those chairs was stripped of their magic by the arena's enchantments. Lord Roland could only laugh, having unintentionally defeated the strongest men in the entire world. With them gone, absolutely no obstacles remained to stop him. But that wouldn't stay true for long, as Arthur descended in a pillar of light with a legendary new transformation. After thanking Cedric for the protection, he made it clear that the real battle was only just beginning. In seconds, our hero manifests a massive spear of light, aiming directly at the sky vessel with every intention of piercing it through the hull. He hurls the divine lance at the elite assassin, and in a single heartbeat, the massive flying vessel is sliced clean in two. The ship erupts into a ball of flame. Far away, Sir Conrad watches the explosion with a proud, knowing smile. After all, he could finally say that the brave son of the Grand Commander had truly awakened at last. Years ago, in a distant land, 3 heroes stood their ground against a monstrous, winged beast of legend. The Crimson Breach had opened, led by the legendary Lord Victor and Lady Margaret of House Kirishima. Conrad, just a squire back then, was terrified because no high-tier reinforcements were coming to help the group. It was a suicide mission, yet the boy begged to join them, refusing to stand idle after the captain's death left him with a fire burning in his soul. But Lord Victor quickly silenced Conrad with a stern, heavy gaze. He told the boy that to preserve their legacy, he had to survive. Conrad was devastated by the order. But his sorrow vanished when they gave him one final, sacred task: protect their newborn son. Lady Margaret explained that the child possessed godlike power his small body couldn't contain. They had to seal it away, and trust me, you and I just saw that ancient seal shatter for good today. Anyway, you and I are about to see how the parents asked Conrad to guide their son toward the light. Luckily, back in the present, the power of the Abyss Master wasn't needed since Julian handled the entire situation alone. Even the Lancer nearby is stunned, demanding to know how our hero managed to gain such massive strength. Conrad explains that Julian is finally tapping into his true power, which had been sealed away. It's like an awakening of latent potential, something truly legendary. Now, both men must finally step up and fulfill their responsibilities. To settle the score, Conrad smashes through the massive doors, standing face to face with his own father, who screams, demanding to know why his son returned. The blonde knight casually remarks that it's been far too long. Conrad mocks him, reminding the old man that his only purpose was to watch his father's empire crumble to dust. Lord 𝒓𝒂𝒔𝒉 is furious to see 2 traitors standing together, but Conrad just smiles, calling it all a big misunderstanding. Conrad was never on his side for a single second. Suddenly, knights from the Royal Ministry of Order Management appear, for the crime of illegal interference within the Kingdom of Avalon. Now pay attention here, 𝒓𝒂𝒔𝒉 is arrested for multiple murders. He becomes deeply distressed, realizing that his reign of terror is finally over. Flashback to when an aide questioned the Lord, since the forbidden crypt belonged to his wife's noble house. But he didn't care. He claimed the burden was too much for her to handle alone. They shared everything, but his real plan was far darker. He intended to send her into the next chaotic monster outbreak. If everyone died, it would just look like a tragic accident. Terrified, the Lord turns tail and starts running. Before the knights can react, he desperately hurls himself through a high window toward the cobblestones below. Despite the fall, Conrad appears, catching his father by his cravat and saving him from a certain death. But this wasn't mercy. Conrad wouldn't let the man die so easily, not until he paid in blood for every single sin he committed. The disgraced lord is dragged away in chains. Conrad just watches, commenting on how dramatic the fall from grace was. You and I both know this is just the beginning. Julian pushes Conrad toward the throne, signaling a massive change. For all his sacrifices in search of revenge, Conrad's punishment is to lead the very house he tried to destroy. Naturally, Conrad flat out refuses to take the job. But Julian reminds him of their promise to maintain a strong partnership in the future. Even better, Julian reveals a magical seal ensuring Conrad can't abandon his seat as the new lord, which completely breaks the blonde's spirit. Back at the tournament grounds, Julian notes that Cedric really pushed himself way too hard. Cedric snaps back that Julian isn't the only one who can be reckless. Max rushes in, begging Cedric to stop fighting. The blonde knight knows he's hurt, but he still has one final score to settle on the field. Suddenly, a warm aura of healing magic begins to wrap around Cedric's wounded body. A blessing from Avalon ensures a fair duel, which is honestly exactly what we wanted to see. Cedric suggests the loser grants the winner one wish. Julian agrees since he's always wanted to keep adventuring with him in the same order, which was exactly what the blonde planned to ask for. So with this duel, they'll decide who joins the other's house. Facing off, Cedric asks if Julian remembers their endless training duels from the past. Julian remembers. The record stands at 0 wins and 999 losses for our hero. Julian tries to comfort him, saying a paladin's true duty is to protect the innocent. As a sage, Julian shouldn't be a master of combat either, but Cedric refuses to use excuses. The hero tries to back down, but Cedric won't hear it. Julian finally accepts the challenge. They prepare for battle, as the announcer declares the resumed start of the interrupted semi-final match. The duel continues as both warriors step forward, but the crowd suddenly notices something strange. A massive tree erupts on the arena's north side. It seems Avalon itself wants to witness this final clash. With all the Grand Masters watching from the stands, the boys know they must give their all. Julian apologizes because he's finally claiming that 1,000th victory. Cedric charges in, steel clashing against steel as the two rivals collide with massive force. Julian's foresight warns him of a lethal thrust. He leans back, narrowly dodging before countering with a lightning-fast kick. Trust me, you and I just witnessed a legendary counter. Was that the sage's prediction? All right, stick with me as we witness Arthur's final stand. He smiles, thanking his ally for helping him reclaim his power. Still, he feels a weight of guilt, knowing this strength was merely borrowed from those who came before him. Elsewhere, Alistair fights his own war without relying on his title. Arthur follows suit, refusing to hide in his comfort zone any longer. If he doesn't, he will never live up to the expectations of his rival. Alistair is certain he can predict a few strikes, countering them easily with a wide variety of battle patterns. Even from afar, our hero senses that simply seeing the future will not be enough to win this. Tapping into his sage powers, Arthur focuses, demanding his sight reveal the path ahead before it even happens. He activates his new skill, the butterfly effect. After sifting through 1,000 possible futures, he finally summons a heavy shield to block the oncoming strike. With one solid motion, he halts the Holy Knight's desperate charge. The knight slams into a steel plate, his health bar dropping as a devastating impact sends him flying across the arena. Watch closely, he's not done yet. Midair, the blonde warrior hurls his blades and sprints right behind them. Aiming straight for Arthur, the knight closes the distance, unleashing 3 distinct attack forms in a brutal blitz. He roars for Arthur to face him, and the hero shouts back that he wants nothing else. With sheer grit, both warriors trade massive blows, watching their life bars drain down to the critical red zone. A sudden explosion erupts, choking the air with dust while the crowd waits breathlessly for a victor. Finally, those golden swords fall from the sky, hitting the dirt just seconds before their master, the Holy Knight, also crashes down in total defeat. By the narrowest of margins, the victor of this semi-final clash is officially declared as Arthur Pendragon. Lying in the dirt, the blonde accepts his 1,000th defeat, though he notes that hiding behind a shield doesn't really suit Arthur's aggressive style. Arthur admits he avoided shields until today, as they only reminded him of a painful memory from his dark past. However, Beatrice realizes that his past self paved the way for the man he is today. Alistair doesn't quite get it, simply offering a hand. Our hero smiles, inviting his old friend to join him on one more epic adventure. Alistair accepts with a grin, honoring their pact. Now, only 2 matches remain in this grand, royal tournament. Next up, Lady Alara faces young Clara in the second semifinal. But the very moment the announcer declares the start, the pink-haired girl is suddenly and brutally ambushed from behind. You and I both knew she was trouble. Arthur's group watches in horror as Clara is left with no chance to defend herself. And since she is labeled a common criminal, Alara feels no mercy, tightening her iron grip around the girl's throat until things start to look truly grim for Clara. Lord Julian is left speechless, barely managing to compose himself before announcing Lady Alara as the cold-blooded winner. He screams for her to release the poor girl, but even with the fight officially over, Alara shows absolutely no sign of stopping. Once again, Arthur is forced to intervene, launching himself directly into the arena with a powerful strike. Cradling Clara, he remembers his promise to meet her in the finals. Consumed by pure fury, he warns the villainess to never again lay a hand on anyone innocent. With a wicked, cynical smirk, Alara offers a mock apology, claiming she had not even realized the match was finished. Arthur tells Alistair to rush Clara to the healers. Before he can leave, the blonde knight calls out to our hero one last time. He simply wishes him good luck. Finally, the two finalists of the Avalon tournament stand face to face in the center of the arena to settle their score forever. Back inside the walls of Sanctuary Hall, the girls explain to Sophia that the teleportation circle is a one-way trip. Serena asks if she's truly prepared to go, knowing there is no turning back. Sophia agrees without a second thought, her mind only on the chaos her sister is currently causing in the kingdom. She knows that if she stays behind, Alara's cycle of violence and endless fighting will never truly come to an end. Now that the drama is finally over, the villainess sneers that they can at last begin their bloody little duel. Arthur demands that if he wins, she must apologize to Clara for the cruelty she showed her. Alara laughs, wondering why he cares for a weakling when she is standing right there. Lord Julian silences the crowd and declares that the final battle has finally begun. Today, the one who emerges victorious shall be crowned the true king of Avalon. The match starts with the world's eyes fixed on them. Arthur summons his glowing aura blade and charges in a blind rage, screaming that Clara is not weak. Alara draws her own wicked blade in response. Alara laughs until their steel finally clashes, only for Arthur's blade to shatter her own. Trust me, you'll want to see what's next. All right, you and I are about to see Seraphina acknowledge Julian's power, because she lives for the strong. As she fights with everything she has, a sudden vision of a young girl hits Julian, leaving him completely shaken. Julian backs off, narrowly dodging Seraphina's blade and blocking her advance. But then, it happens again. Another memory flashes, Seraphina's tragic past. We see the day the young noble was dragged away by the ruthless royal regents. And even worse, Julian feels her agony as an alchemist's lab rat. Every strike carries the pain of being forced into knighthood as a child. The real kicker, her own family sold her out just for the gold she brought into their manor. Now, Seraphina's suppressed rage is pouring out of her sword with every single swing. We see the moment she risked it all just to visit her sister one last time. Escaping that prison turned her into a wanted criminal. Back in reality, the master asks Julian why his focus is slipping. Even the Grand Archmage knows this is heading somewhere dangerous. Pay attention. With his awakening, Julian inherited the Archmage's eyes. Usually, this skill exposes an enemy's past to find their fatal flaws. But for someone as kind as Julian, it only makes him pity her more. Seraphina is fuming at Julian's hesitation, but just as she moves in for the kill, he screams that she never wanted this fight. It rattles her because they are complete strangers. He claims she never should have been cursed with this power, but she just laughs. She needed this strength. She craved a force that nobody could ever steal or use against her again. Julian grabs her arms, realizing that deep down, she is just a terrified child. But others have used her heart against her before. Thinking it's a trick, she blasts Julian back. A panic attack grips her. She is obsessed with the idea that without victory, she loses everything. Through sheer, agonizing willpower, she forces herself to focus on the target. Looking at Julian, she spots a dark, swirling energy pulsing deep within his chest. Seraphina grins, finally finding her prize, and charges forward, demanding that he surrender it. Suddenly, she rips a portal right into Julian's chest, reaching in to grab the necromantic lord's seal. Check this out. She drains every drop of that power into her own body. An explosion erupts, shaking the very heavens and tearing the clouds apart. From the flames, Seraphina emerges transformed. She mocks Julian for never using such godlike abilities himself. He can't exactly explain his moral code right now, because things just got real. She summons a scythe of black flame and tells him to die, calling him pathetic for losing. Wasting no time, she opens multiple rifts in the air all around him. Vicious black claws lunge from the portals, forcing Julian into a desperate, frantic run. He realizes distance won't save him, just as she launches another devastating strike. She smashes him into the dirt. As rain falls, Julian loses his light and his aura flickers out. Glaring at the magical broadcast, Seraphina waits for the divine decree to declare her the winner, but then she severs the broadcast signal, leaving the world in darkness as she cements her status as a global threat. In this cruel kingdom, Seraphina just wants to see every last person vanish. Winning the eternal throne gives her total control, and she plans to burn it all down. With this power, rift eruptions don't matter. She is the apocalypse now, ready to end everyone. Barely conscious, Julian uses his final breath to tell her she can't do this. With eyes full of pity, he begs the girl to snap out of this nightmare. In that moment, Julian's faith reaches the necromantic lord. The white gate's seal shatters as the prison breaks open. Ancient chains fall away as the grave saint's soul finally breaks free from its prison. Centuries ago in a distant kingdom, a black plague spread, devastating the entire population. And that's where we leave it. One man's quest to save his world has just begun. Stick with me, we're diving into the tragic history of a broken man. The villagers were horrified by his obsession, convinced the poor doctor was possessed by a demon. Whispers turned into accusations that he was the one spreading the rot. By the time his final days arrived, everyone knew him as the Reaper Sage. The very people he tried to save eventually dragged him out and executed him like a witch. He died cursing the entire world, completely forgetting the noble purpose he once lived for. Deep down, he only wanted to bring hope to the suffering, like a bright rainbow over the kingdom. Back at the arena, Isabella looks down at our hero and calls his condition pathetic. Since Julian is still breathing, she figures it's the perfect chance to finally destroy him. Suddenly, as she walks forward, a touch on her foot catches her attention. A small, lost soul begs for mercy, saying this power is the only thing it has left. Isabella asks if this is the power's true master, and the soul confirms the truth with a plea. But after thinking for a moment, the cold-hearted girl just asks why she should ever do that. Now pay attention, because you and I are watching her cruelty cross a line she can never come back from. She took this power by force, and she has zero intention of ever giving it back. With a murderous look, she demands to know if this wretched soul is trying to take something away from her too, just like all the others. The original bearer of the power continues to beg despite the abuse, but Isabella is tired of it all. She raises her scythe and coldly denies him before finishing off his remaining consciousness. Julian, on the other hand, can't stand to watch this cruelty and charges forward with every bit of his remaining strength. Julian blurs around her and manages to save the sage's soul from being finished off. Isabella is beyond furious that even at the end, he is still interfering with her dark plans. The tiny spirit is completely stunned that anyone actually stepped in to rescue it. It asks why he bothered saving a hollow ghost with nothing left to give, but Julian explains he saw the sage's true memories the moment his power was stolen. And with that, Julian asks the sage to remember what still remains within his heart and recall everything he had forgotten over time. He points toward a light, and the soul follows it instinctively. The moment the soul looks within, he sees his old self, sending a massive wave of emotion through him. Julian says the sage had stronger feelings than anyone else, so strong they consumed his heart, just like what is happening to Isabella right now. Either way, Julian asks the soul for guidance, wishing to inherit the sage's true and righteous path. With those revelations, the sage finally remembers the hero he used to be before the darkness. You feel that, right? That shift in the air as their powers finally begin to merge. Isabella tries to stop them, but the light is too pure. Suddenly, a massive pillar of energy strikes the sky as their souls fuse into one. The Grandmaster Knight watches in awe as the legendary prism, Saint, finally descends upon the battlefield. Isabella is clearly being consumed by the corrupt power, screaming in terror as her world unravels. But Julian simply charges in her direction, slashing through everything with terrifying speed as her cursed scythe is completely destroyed to her absolute shock. She didn't even see it happen. Desperate, the criminal opens her dark portals to keep the fight going. But our hero summons a storm of aura swords. Using a technique of 1,000 blades, he crushes every temporal rift, leaving her shaken. Her original weapon is still sitting untouched at the edge of the arena. She scrambles toward it, but Julian predicts her move, conjuring a rainbow wall to block her path. Just as Isabella reaches for the blade, the prism's force blasts her backward across the arena. She's flying straight toward a jagged piece of her own broken weapon, doomed to be impaled. Julian blurs across the stone and catches her, saving the girl from her own deadly mistake. Instead of being grateful, she snarls and shoves him away, asking if he's actually trying to save her. She screams at the top of her lungs that she doesn't need his pity or his help. With her rage at its maximum, she raises her hand to cast a devastating spell. Summoning a giant energy sphere, she vows to destroy everything, leaving Julian shocked. But at the very last second, a new figure steps directly into the heart of the chaos. Before she can launch her final revenge, her own sister, Elena, appears right in front of her. And that's where we leave it for now. Trust me, you and I won't want to miss what happens in the next chapter of this legend. Trust me, watch this. Sir Arthur lunged forward, rushing past his comrade, Lady Gwendolen, like lightning while thanking her for creating that perfect opening in the enemy guard. Now pay attention here. He unleashed a barrage of strikes, ending the fight instantly and proving his power is truly on a legendary level. And that's where we leave it. Subscribe so you and I can witness the next chapter together, and I'll see you next time. On Tab's channel.